Thanks. Okay, Cahirlock, the press have now joined the meeting and we are streaming live.
No problem at all. Thanks for that, Anna. We'll have the prayer, please.
And when who's victim spirit nave amen. Cur the vanic darn grunu shot of throwing shilling our good there son the fubble 3 cure sardina amen. And I'm who's a victim spirit nave amen. Will I do the roll call, Cahirlock?
You can now, yeah, yes.
Councillor Tom Cronin.
Here.
Councillor Conor McGuinness.
What's up?
Councillor Declan Ducey.
I'm sure.
Councillor Damien Gagan.
Sure.
Councillor Pat Nugent.
Present. Yeah.
Councillor Thomas Phelan.
I'm sure.
Councillor John Pratt.
I'm sure.
Councillor James Tobin.
Present.
And we've apologies from Councillor Seamus O'Donnell.
Okay, that's the roll call. Votes of sympathy. Anyone has votes of sympathy? Councillor Phelan.
Can you hear me there, Chair? Yeah.
I can, yes.
Okay. Yeah, I'd like to express vote of sympathy to the families of the following who were recently deceased, to Garvan Kine from a very well-known family in Abbeyside in Dungarvan, and indeed with family not long ago in this chamber as a former councillor and obviously former TD as well in relation to his brother and his father. So I'd like to pass on our condolences to the family there, and also to the family of Miss Teresa Sheehan from Clonetty Villas, whose husband Sean, formerly of the council, only recently predeceased her, unfortunately. And finally to the family of Tommy Leahy of McCarthyville in Abbeyside. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Pat Nugent.
Chair, I would like to propose a vote of sympathy to the O'Malley family in Lismore. It was I was late coming to the last meeting, but Noel O'Malley died suddenly in Lismore. He was a Mayo man, but he lived in Lismore for been in 50 years, and married to a local girl, and he had a shop and a very successful shop for a long period of that time. Also to the Sheehan family, as Thomas said, who was Teresa Sheehan's daughter, Marion, worked in the county council for years. Thank you.
Councillor Pratt. Councillor Pratt.
He's on mute.
I'd like to be associated with the death of Garvan Kine, Billy Kine's brother, just as well there with Councillor Phelan, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pratt. Councillor Gagan.
Yeah, I'd also like to express my sympathies to the families of the Sheehan families and the Kynes family, and indeed the family of Tommy Leahy in Abbeyside. And there's no doubt about it, but as Councillor Phelan said there, the Sheehan family and the Kyne family have a long association with the council in Dungarvan.
Councillor McGuinness.
Yeah, I too would like to be associated with the vote of sympathy for the Kine family, the Sheehan family and the Leahy family, that have been mentioned already.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I would like also to be associated with those votes of sympathy. I would have known all of them. I suppose the Kine family, goes back years upon years in politics in West Waterford. So, look, I just want to be associated with them as well. So we move on to congratulations. Anyone have?
Yes, Chair. Yes, Chair. Can I?
Sorry.
Do you want to? Councillor Tobin, go ahead.
Sorry, I suppose you can roll me out if you like, Chair. But I think it's a unique day, and we are the first elected body to be meeting after Ballygunner winning an All-Ireland. And I think it's a great day for Waterford, not just for GA, but it's a great day for everybody, because after such a pandemic that we've been in with the past 2 years, I think this has given a great lift to the people of Waterford. And I think, even though it will be done at the council, and rightly so, but we are the first elected group to meet since an All-Ireland has been brought to Waterford. So I'd like to congratulate Ballygunner on behalf of the people of Lismore and Dungarvan.
I would just like, just before I bring in anyone, I would just like to be associated with that. Congratulations to Ballygunner. I suppose, look, my own club, which I played a part in, I'd say we were the last team to bring an All-Ireland home, and we were the first club in County Waterford to do so. Only a few years ago, may I add. And again, right, look, it gives a serious lift. It gives a serious lift to our county team going forward. And look, all I'd say is drive on from here, and hopefully, right, we can get the Lee McCarthy Cup back, because it wasn't home since 1959. So its real home is in Waterford. So listen, hopefully it'll come very shortly. So Conor, Dean McGuinness, you're next.
And so say all of us, Cahir. Look, yeah, just two items of congratulations. One to the Dungarvan Agricultural Show, who've announced that the show will be returning after a hiatus due to COVID, and will take place now on the 10th of July, and it'll be a weekend. So it's just, I think it's a boost to all of us, something to look forward to for rural Ireland, for people from the town of Dungarvan and further afield as well. So it's just to mark that, I suppose, and to wish them well as they begin preparations for the first show back after an unfortunate hiatus. And then also as well to welcome, congratulate and commend our own council officials on securing 150,000 euros under the Sports Capital Grant for the BMX track there at Fair Lane. A huge step forward. Obviously, we have the outdoor performance place, the Learn to Cycle track already in situ. We're looking at the application now for the skate park, hopefully being decided in the coming weeks. And there's just great progress there. So I think it's just worthy of noting here at this juncture, Cahir. So congratulations to our own officials there. Thank you.
Councillor John Pratt.
I'd like also to be associated with the both congratulations for Ballygunner, and like it's amazing how GA works, like your arrival on the pitch, at club level. But to be fair, I would hope that I know that the vast majority of people in Waterford were cheering them on Saturday, and I suppose the way they won it was phenomenal. Like beating a team that were going for 3 in a row. So I think it was a great day for Waterford, and hopefully a stepping stone to an All Ireland in the coming year. Thank you.
Councillor Pat Nugent.
I would like to be also associated with the Ballygunner success on Saturday. Being up there on Saturday and the joy that gave people, young and old, even Kilcoo, people that were alongside me, like the joy that he gave them before they went on and got won an All-Ireland later on that evening. But I would say there was 31 counties supporting Ballygunner on Saturday, and I do think that it will give an added bonus to the county team going forward. I would also like to congratulate Seamus Power on his. We honoured him there about 2 or 3 years ago inside the chamber in Dungarvan. But like the success that he has since the start of this year, to be within I think the 46th place in the world rankings, up from over 400 place only a year and a half ago. I think it is a huge boost, and hopefully he'll go from strength to strength from here on. Thank you.
Councillor Demi Gagan.
Yeah, thanks, Cahir. Look, I'd also like to add my congratulations to Ballygunner and congratulate him on what was a marvellous win on Saturday last. It certainly gave everyone in Waterford a great lift. It was as good as seeing the county team, winning a big match. That's what it felt like. And I'd also, ask that we'd pass on our congratulations also, and we'd spare a thought for James O'Connor, a proud Waterford man who was the manager of the Ballyhale team. My heart, I have to say, went out to him after the game, even though we were all glad that Ballygunner won. Yeah, and the dignified manner and the way he carried himself, and he's an excellent manager. He's as proud a Waterford man as you could get, and he has served Waterford with distinction over many years. And I think that we should just spare a thought for James O'Connor at the moment as well.
Thank you for that, councillors. Right, we'll move on if that's okay. Oh, sorry, Councillor Ducey. Yes, go on.
Thank you. Thanks, Chair, to be remiss of me and to be seen and to be the odd man out. Like I fully agree with all previous speakers. The huge achievement, but like not surprising. And like you often heard of the rub of the green is so important. Well, it was never as important as it was for Ballygunner, even though they were knocking on the door, and you know, they did the county proud, and we'd all complain every year, oh, should they have a free run, and it's very hard to beat them. But like now, you can see the standard of water hurling, how good it is. So when the rest of us maybe haven't gone so bad. So best of luck to him. And like Damien said, my neighbour James O'Connor, like his CV is enormous now. You know what I mean? To bring Ballyhale Shamrocks to an All Ireland club final, and they're going to get beat by a rubber green. You know what I mean? It's a fair achievement for him too. So even though he came second. Thank you.
Councillor Phelan, yes.
Thanks, Chair. I definitely don't want to be the odd man out, so I too would like to concur with and be associated with the votes. Congratulations for Ballygunner and for Seamus Power indeed as well. Ballygunner's performance has produced a joy to watch, really, a real nail biter and a real display of the talent available to not just the club but also to Waterford. So hopefully it's onwards and upwards for the entire county. In relation to Seamus Power, I think he may actually have gone up to number 45 in the World Golf Rankings as of yesterday. So onwards and upwards for Seamus too, and hopefully more glory to be brought back home to us. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, we'll go on. Confirmation of minutes. Any changes to be made? Are they okay? Okay, I want to propose on a seconder.
Sorry, there, just one.
So, okay, Councillor Tobin.
Just one change there. So just you'll probably go ahead. I didn't look for the workshop on parking. It's some other councillor.
Okay, Declan, Councillor Ducey, you're in as well.
Yeah, Mayor's Rising, maybe no.
No. Okay, Councillor Phelan.
No, just say it was possibly myself or maybe another councillor looked for the parking workshop.
Okay, we might
confirm Councillor Phelan then as a proposer for the minutes purposes.
Yeah,
okay.
I'd second.
Yeah.
Okay, we move on. So have I got a proposal and a seconder for the minutes? Councillor McGuinness, did you want to come in there?
I was going to propose, but I have a matter arising as well.
Okay, you're proposing the minutes, Councillor McGuinness?
I am.
I
Yes.
seconded Councillor Cron. Yeah.
Okay, Councillor Pratt seconding. Okay, Councillor McGuinness?
Thank Gramagat Cahirlach. I think there's a couple of meetings back, but it's in the minutes from the last meeting. I'd asked that you, as Cahirlach, would write to the RSA about the waiting lists for young drivers who are trying to get on the road and the impact it's having on their ability to hold down jobs, to attend training, education, all the rest of it. I take there hasn't been a response back from the RSA, and if not, is it possible that we could perhaps escalate it to the minister? It's a real issue that's affecting people across rural Ireland, and I think if the RSA now haven't responded to 2 occasions, two monthly meetings here at the District Council, I've been flagging this. I think we have to escalate it to the line minister to get their input on it. Another issue that I raised at last month's meeting is the issue of the Christmas lights in Dungarvan, and it's just if we know when they're going to come down. I mean, there's a line of a song that says, "I wish it could be Christmas every day," but you know, I think people are kind of looking at them and thinking, you know, it's the middle of February. Today is Valentine's Day, in case you didn't remember. It might be about time that they're taken down. And just an update on Railway Gardens. I asked the housing director, a question with regard to Railway Gardens in Lismore and getting social and affordable housing in there since the wheels came off the last project. And I was told I'd get a response. So just to see if there's any response to that. Gurmaga Cahirlach.
Thank you. Councillor Phelan.
Thanks, Chair. Just a few short questions. Again, as Councillor McGuinness mentioned, the Christmas lights, as I said, we're now at Valentine's Day and they're still up. So I'm wondering why is that and when might they be coming down? I asked about possibility of changing traffic lights at pedestrian crossing the far side of the shopping centre to constant flashing amber, and that was going to be looked into. So I'm wondering, was there an update on that? And also at the last meeting, I asked about a speed survey at the Kilmingan Junction in Ballon Road. I'm wondering, there's an update on that. And also raised the issue of lack of bins between shopping centre and Grattan Square, and the shopping centre was to be contacted about that. I'm just wondering if that hasn't already happened. When they are being contacted, could the opportunity be taken to also ask them about maintenance of lights in the plaza and the car park, and about maintenance of the tree planters in the plaza as well. And then I have been, as was mentioned, asking for workshops to do with both antisocial behaviour and parking for a while. Just ask if they've been scheduled, and if not, just say that, look, given that we've had so many workshops lately, particularly about the development plan, I'd be happy if they were pushed out to March. Even though I've been looking for them, I don't mind if they're put out to a time when we've more availability in our own schedules. And then lastly, it's not in the minutes, but maybe just for something you might maybe like to do, Chair, is in relation to the Positive Moresby Boy Committee meeting we had this morning, if you wanted to call upon Ray Maloney at some point in the meet to give an update on that. Thanks, Chair.
Yeah, I will be doing that, Councillor Phelan, at a later stage. I'll be bringing Ray Maloney in, or I don't know who else is there, but Ray is definitely there anyway. Councillor Ducey, did you indicate?
Yes, from matters arising now. Yeah. I requested there, they have written to the Bank of Ireland about the use of the maybe conversion of the old bank building in Lismore for an IT hub. You know, we just got an email this morning now about how successful Cappoquin and the Blackwater House. The Bank of Ireland Lismore is a ready-to-go site. A lick of paint, it hardly needs even, and what it has, which every other hub at the moment that is being developed and have not got, is parking for the people working there. So it's real. It's going to be, if it's going to slip through the net on this, it's going to be a lost opportunity, because it's a ready-to-go operation. And I'm just wondering, is there any reply back yet? Thank you.
Okay. Kieran, you might come in there if you can, please.
Yeah, thanks, Cathaoirleach. Yeah, as requested by the meeting, we've made contact with the agent appointed on behalf of Bank of Ireland in relation to the disposal of those properties. So I expressed the views of the district proposed by Councillor Ducey, that we would seek to engage to see if there's any potential for the future development of the unit. And the agent appointed on behalf of Bank of Ireland is committed to come back to us. Now I'm waiting for that agent to come back to us. So I've no further update other than that, Cathaoirleach.
Okay, Anna, I take it replying back to Councillor McGuinness's proposal there. Well, it was in connection with the RSA there. I take it there was no letter came back because I wasn't told.
No, I haven't received anything, but I can certainly follow up on it again and see if there's somewhere else that we can direct the issue to.
Would it be possible, right, to write to the minister, because, you know, they have got two chances at this stage, and I would have to say, right, you know, we can't afford to give them any more chances. There's people out there waiting, and I presume, Conor, you would second that, would you? That we would write to the minister straight away and get stuck into him.
Absolutely, Cathaoirleach Armagh.
Okay, thanks. Okay, now we go back to, there was other questions asked as well by Councillor McGuinness. He was first in, so someone might take him on or take him up. Okay, I see Ivan is indicating.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Councillor McGuinness, in relation to Railway Gardens, unfortunately I don't have an update for this meeting, but it remains on the radar to follow up, and I hope to have an update for the next meeting of the district. Councillor Phelan, in relation to the antisocial behaviour workshop, the likelihood is it will be March. I think I indicated at the last meeting that, having discussed the matter with Honor, we given the volume of workshops and meetings in relation to the development plan, we push any other non-planning workshops back, and we would have a few scheduled for next month. Or sorry, we will be scheduling the dates for next month. While I have the floor, Chair, if you don't
Yes,
mind, I'd like to clarify something that was raised at the last meeting, and I think I might have prematurely announced a submission to the department in relation to housing development, social housing development in Shanfogel. The situation is that we've had some very positive meetings with and engagement with the department around the proposal, but there are a few technical issues that are being addressed at the moment, and a submission will be going to the department for a social housing project in Old Parish. Thanks, Chair.
Okay. Right, Kieran, you can come back in again, Kieran, please.
Yeah, what I'll do is I'll follow up on the issue in relation to the Christmas lights. And both members raised that there, Councillor McGuinness and Councillor Phelan. In relation to the workshop, similarly in relation to the parking, I think you have had quite a lot of workshops of late with development plan. You're going to do another set of workshops over the next couple of weeks now, hopefully as we get the announcement for the roads programme. I think that will take a focus for the next couple of weeks till we get that out of the, and I think we would arrange it very quickly after that once roads are free, maybe from that programme of works. But Lisa's here from Economic Development, she'll follow up in relation to Christmas lights, and Gabriel will arrange in March with the parking workshop. I think
okay. Okay, thanks, Kieran. I think that's yourself sorted. Gabriel Hines, you have indicated, Gabriel, so you might come in there as well, please.
Yeah, thank you, Cahill. Just to come back to Councillor Phelan. In relation to traffic lights at the back of the shopping centre, the engineer Josephine and myself reviewed it, and we're of the view from a pedestrian safety point of view, the current position where you have red, amber and green is safer for the vulnerable, I suppose, road users, which is basically a pedestrian. So we're not recommending any change there. In relation to Kilminion, we have reviewed the location, and we're going to change the statutory signage first, and that is programmed to be completed in the next week or so, and thereafter we can commence the speed survey once the new signages are in place. Thank you, Cahill.
Thank you. Ray, you want to come in?
Yeah, thank you, Cahill. Look, in relation to Councillor Phelan's matter, the litter in the plaza in the shopping centre, I haven't engaged with the shopping centre yet, Councillor, but what I've asked the environmental inspector to monitor the situation so that we can establish the level of litter in that area. I was over there twice myself last week. It was actually very well presented. There was complete absence of litter on both occasions when I was there last week. In relation to the maintenance of the lights, maybe give me the details specifically of what lights you're referring to there. We can have a look and see are they within the council responsibility or whether they're responsibility of the shopping centre. And finally, in relation to the maintenance of the planters, it might best be talk to Lisa and take that up through the town centre management group directly to the shopping centre. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, can you email those lights you're talking about, Tom, please, to Ray Maloney, and he'll look after that for you.
I can, Chair. Thanks. Just on the Christmas lights, do we know why they're still up? As a matter of interest.
Through the chair, sorry, I had been attempting to get an update. I was conscious that this would come up. I had actually understood they were coming down last week. I'm not sure what the delay has been with the contractor. It's not, in bad news, it's not exclusive to Tramore. There was delay, or Dungarvan, there was delays in Tramore in the city. So I don't have the answer, but once I have the confirmed date, and if I have any clarification on the reason, I'll come back to you. And as Ray said, I'll speak to the town centre management group about the planters as well.
Thank you.
Okay, we move on. Ray, your hand is still up, by the way. Councillor Pratt, are you coming in? Do you want to come in?
Sorry, I thought you said, are we moving on? Is it economic development?
Yeah, we're moving on. Yeah, we're moving on to item 3 on the agenda, right? And first up, right, is economic development, and Lisa Grant will be taking questions on that. So, Councillor Pratt, you have the floor.
No, I suppose really all I want to just welcome, I said, and I know it was mentioned earlier, is the regeneration, Cappoquin regeneration funding, but the fact that there's a consultation meeting coming up on Tuesday the 22nd between 7 and 9 p.m. in the community centre, and it'll be an opportunity for people to be you know, giving an overview and have their say. And I think it's an important that people would attend, you know, anyone that would have an interest or different groups would be in attendance on that night. So just it's another step forward, I suppose. So thanks.
Councillor McGuinness.
Gurmaguk here. Look, yeah, a couple of items. I know the shopfront scheme is open for applications at the moment for Dungarvan, Tremor, and the city. I understand. And that's to be welcomed, and it is a very valuable scheme. And I know, talking to a number of businesses around Dungarvan, there's some interest in it, and there's many businesses that would have benefited from it in the past. But is there any such scheme for other towns in the county, for the likes of Lismore, for Tallow, for Cappoquin, for Ardmore, for Clashmore, other towns, you know, where businesses are facing similar challenges, and you know, could do with maybe that bit of support as well? So I just want to pose that question. Also, Councillor Pratt already mentioned it there, but the Cappoquin regeneration consultation meeting, I just want to, I suppose, commend that approach. It is something that that I and others had kind of flagged up at the very beginning of our conversations about the Cappoquin regeneration project, that the community would be kept informed and brought along. I was at the last consultation meeting. There was a really good turnout. There was really good engagement. So that's really positive, and look, I look forward to that, and I'd encourage people to get to that, and even people who aren't from Cappoquin to go and have a look at what's going there, the progress and the opportunity, because let Cappoquin be the flagship, and let us try replicate in other areas in the future. And then finally, I don't know if this quite strictly comes under economic development, but it's more maybe community. But I'll just pose the question here, and it relates to the Town Hall Theatre in the town of Dungarvan and its use and its access. And it's maybe not a conversation for today, but I would really welcome a workshop to discuss how we can make better use, especially as we're coming out of the COVID restrictions, how we can make better use of this amenity, of this resource that's there for the people of Dungarvan and West Waterford. I think just like that on the record, that we would maybe come back to that at a future time and get input from officials and have a really good discussion on it. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Phelan, now lads, I'm timing you now, and you have 2 minutes, okay?
Okay, thanks, Chair. Firstly, I'd like to congratulate all involved at the Greenway on winning yet another award. It's great further boost for us. Hopefully we'll see a point when the repair stations that went into Fairlane Park will also be installed at the main Greenway car parks, because that would be another useful amenity and thoughtful amenity for visitors. And referring back to the shopfront improvement scheme, again, an excellent initiative. I'm just wondering if that is being directly marketed or targeted to relevant premises in the applicable towns, because it's not just for, I suppose, painting and whatnot. It could be used to take down obsolete or old wiring off building fronts, which can be a bit unsightly, and it might be a useful fund for that. I don't know if this is the right place, but do we have an update as to when and where the public toilet will be installed in Dungarvan as we come towards tourism season? And finally, there's reference to the Town Centre Management Group in the minutes, and it's good to have Lisa here, because the recently announced Town Centre First National Policy referenced that there'll be new town teams. I'm just wondering, would that be to replace the Town Centre Management Groups? And if so, will there be scope for councillor representation on those town teams, and indeed increased councillor representation? Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor James Tobin.
Chair, just Conor raised the subject that I wanted to raise, so I'm just adding my voice to it, and that is to know, is the shopfront scheme going to be extended to smaller towns? Because we do with it badly in all the small little towns, and the shopfronts, well, they're well kept and the people are doing their very best, but any little bit of help would be greatly appreciated in the smaller towns and villages as well, because I think what is really important at this stage is the town centres. If the town centres aren't going to be kept up, and if they're not going to be populated, the overhead parts of them, we're going to lose all our identity. Because remember that the small town, it was the town centre was the important thing, and all the big supermarkets and everything else are gone outside the towns. So we need to keep up the centres, and I think we try and get the small towns included in the shop front scheme as well. Thank you very much.
Councillor Nugent.
Thanks, Chair. I would like to ask Kieran, the tennis club and the bowls club over in Abbey side, they were delighted with getting the legals up to date and the lease in place. But Kieran, the question I'm asking you, in the tennis club received a substantial grant last Thursday or whatever the capital grants were out. When will the final of the lease be sorted out? It's between solicitors now, but is there a time frame that you could put on it, please? And they're delighted the way the council has worked with them heretofore. My second question is, Kieran, again, I'd like to thank you. Like you're putting a committee together to look at the feasibility study of the swimming pool plus sports complex, whatever what we're talking about. Do you intend to include any county councillors in it? And my last question is, with the ending of COVID, hopefully over the next 2 or 3 or 4 months, will there be a use for the outdoor furniture, or will that be left there in the long term? What's your thoughts on that? Thank you.
Okay, Lisa, I'll bring you in now. You might answer some of those questions if you can.
Sure. I'll take the shopfront improvement scheme. Yeah, at the moment, I suppose the scheme we're operating is in Dungarvan, Tramore Town Centre and the city centre. We don't have it in the other towns. There has been, even within the last year, under the Towns and Village Street Enhancement Scheme, Passage East, Bowman, Portlaw and Lismore would have benefited from that scheme. And sorry, I was trying to go back over some of the previous minutes. And under another scheme under Towns and Villages back, this was in the September last year update, 50 facades on Main Street in Cappoquin would have been done under that scheme. So I suppose while the shopfront improvement scheme is limited to our 3 main urban areas, other towns and villages have benefited under Towns and Villages. And I suppose I would say we have no issue administering schemes in other towns and villages if it's appropriate, but we need the budget to do so in relation to that. And Kieran, are you taking town centre first? Or
Yeah, no, thanks. I'll come in there. So, Lisa, thanks for that. In relation to the town development and that town centre first policy, look, we have a rural development section. They're doing great work, as you can see. You've all mentioned about Cappoquin, but all the other towns as well. The Blackwater Valley, Dungarvan obviously is part of that. But we will now refocus, I suppose, in accordance with the town centre first and the requirement to develop plans. Obviously, you saw that we had put forward nationally in relation to funding for the next town centre plan, and that Portlaw was the nominated town there for the county, one per county awarded that fund. But I think it is important that we move through the other towns and villages, and it came up at our own management team meeting over the last couple of weeks. And it will be a prime focus for the rural development section. That's been enhanced, that has been further enhanced with resources, etc. So they will be engaging over the next while to develop. Now, we can't do every town at the same time. There isn't resources there to say that. But I think what we need to do is develop a schedule of how you address the needs and requirements of each town. And the important thing is that it's done in a collaborative approach with the communities and the people in the towns and villages that we're going to be talking about. Just staying, I suppose, with the town centre first policy, and Councillor Phelan use the term town team. They're called town centre management groups in Waterford, whereas work previously they were called town teams. So the nomenclature, if you want to use that term, probably doesn't really make a whole lot of difference. It's up to the group and ourselves here in relation to reconstituting them. Obviously, nominations to the groups are made through the committee structure of the plenary council, so that would all have to be up for review, etc. We can review it as part of the overall town centre because it's not just anything new here. It would have to be consistently done, of course, in Tramore, and as well, of course, you would expect in relation to the town hall theatre. The town hall theatre is a great asset. It is available. I suppose the commitment that we're making to it actually is we're currently, over the last few months now, we've re-looked at the whole need to upgrade the lighting, the heating, and indeed the electrics in the facility. It just has come to a need to upgrade it. to bring it up to the next level. We've got a contractor specialist in place. We've contractors gone through the procurement process. So those work will be done over the next few months in relation to upgrading the theatre. It's handled through our arts office in relation to booking the theatre. Their note is that look, the apart from a few shows that come around, there's no huge demand. But we want to do, as Councillor McGuinness says, maybe highlight and showcase the fantastic asset that is there, and make more people aware, I suppose, of it. But I suppose once we get maybe the opportunity of getting the lights done, the electricity done, and indeed we want to do a nice painting and refresh of the building itself, I think is important as well. I think we can showcase it and advertise it as the fantastic thing that it is. In relation to public toilets, there hasn't been any finalised location agreed yet. We're considering best locations at the moment and looking at options between our roads and presentation crews. Obviously, there's all locations would be suitable because you would like to locate close to facilities in relation to connection to sewers and power, etc. And then where's the best location? You don't want it hidden, you want them in public areas as well and accessible for you. So that's the current assessment that's ongoing, and we'll hopefully have something for next meeting in relation to potential locations on it. The tennis club, yes, the lease is sorted out. I've signed it myself. So it's obviously with legals, Pat, it's not between ourselves and that. So I'll check up in relation to what is the hold up on that lease issue, but it was all done from our point of view, and like I said, I have signed from our point of view that it's okay, and I know that so had the tennis club themselves. So I'll follow up. Thanks, Councillor Nugent, for raising that. I'll follow up to see where that is in relation to the feasibility study for the potential that councillors put forward. Secured the funding for that in budget 2022. What the intention there is to obviously engage with those people who want to and I had canvassed very strongly for this, and it wouldn't be a proper feasibility study if we don't engage with them adequately in relation to the terms of reference for it. So I had just intended that we would be meeting them on Thursday initially, and we'd look between ourselves, our community section, and those people, that we'd create a group of whatever, anywhere between 5 to 10 people, to put together the terms of reference. Now it's up to the members if they want to seek membership of it, but we can keep you updated in relation to progress every couple of months or whenever the progress happens. The outdoor furniture has been quite successful. It's removed in areas, I suppose, that is completely does have no demand, I suppose, for it, but other areas are being used, albeit less frequently. You would note and expect. But the funding was received for it to be an all year round proposal and offering, and that's, I suppose, the intention at the moment, that it wouldn't be taken in and taken out on that frequent a basis. So look, that's where we're at the moment in relation to it, and what we'll probably be doing over the next couple of months now is getting ready, like we did last year, is coming to ourselves in relation to a proposal for next year, or for this summer rather, and to the extent of the outdoor dining provision in the town. I think they were the issues.
Thank you.
Kieran, just going back to the feasibility study there around the Quans area, would it not be possible to broaden that a bit? And I would agree with Councillor Nugent, maybe upgrading the sports complex as well. But I feel myself the town needs something like a conference centre. I think it badly needs it, to be fair. And I also think, right, we need some place that we could bring the likes of Derek Ryan, the country music singer. Nathan Carter is coming to Cappoquin over the next few days. I think this is sometime early in March, but I could be wrong in the date. But I do know Nathan Carter is coming to Waterford, but like, it's sold out. So, like, would it be possible, right, to have something like a conference centre that you could turn into a place like a place that you could have music like as I said, Derek Ryan, Nathan Carter, our own Paddy O'Brien, who's an Irishman, right? Those kind of bands. Would it be possible to maybe look at the feasibility study of expanding this to the next level? Because I think myself, all I would have heard of over the last number of months is that the swimming pool on its own mightn't be feasible. But when you bring the whole package in together, I think myself, right, there's a greater chance of it being that it would work out financially, and I think we need it. I think the town needs it, And you could incorporate more than just what I'm saying as well. You know, we have a boxing club there, and the gym they have, right, not big enough. I think they got funding there over the since Friday, you know, but to expand that to the next level that it needs to be, we could also incorporate maybe AstroTurf or something like that as well, outdoor AstroTurf, or, you know, like, I think myself that we're too confined just to the swimming pool. I think we should be broadening our views out wider and incorporating more and have a kind of, I suppose, a centre of excellence, if I may call it that. So look, maybe what's your view on that?
Yeah, I don't know whether you want to let in Councillor Phelan and Ducey before I reply, but I can reply directly if you want.
Yeah, look, just reply if they.
Yeah, look, I wouldn't disagree in any shape or form with what you have said there around the need to, or the wish and want, rather than the need, maybe the wish and want to develop a fantastic sports and recreation campus, as I would call it. I think I've made reference to that in the past with yourselves around the whole Quans area. But I would not think that the budget allocation 22 would stretch anywhere close to the funding requirement to do a feasibility study of that scale. We have something in place to do what we have in relation to a swimming pool. That has not in any way decided on a location. It hasn't even decided if there's a need for it, let alone a location for it. So let's, rather than putting the cart before the horse, let's get the feasibility study done first, maybe for the swimming pool, with the main people who are driving it, with Barracuda Club. But I do agree with everything you have said in relation to looking at the whole Quans area. So maybe that's where we need to see if we can source a few funds for that in our next round of where funding may come from. Thanks, Carla.
Like, my view is that we could even expand the camper van site there as well. We have one, but, like, you know, if the room is there, which there is plenty of room around there, that we could expand that even. So, Councillor Phelan, I think Councillor Ducey's up next to come to this. Yeah, Councillor Ducey.
Thanks, Chair. I know it's an appropriate place, but economic activity anyway. What I'm trying to bring up is economic reduction. Down through the years, there, you know, there was the court service was provided in West Warburton, in Cappoquin, Tallow, and Lismore, and the Cappoquin service and the Tallow service were withdrawn a number of years ago, and it was brought to the Lismore service, and there was a huge investment in the courthouse in Lismore, $1 million, I think, to make it comfortable, and it is a very workable courtroom, and there's room there, and there's, like I said previously, there's parking around. The court service now are in the process of withdrawing the service in Lismore and moving it all that business to Dungarvan. And Dungarvan is blocked up, the court service in Dungarvan is blocked up and backed up, I think, with cases. And, you know, it's a very small area. You know, you'll see people pressed there, and when there's court on, and there's people out in the streets doing their business and waiting to meet a magistrate. But, you know, economic activity and economic development, this forum we're talking about now is, so maybe it is the place to pick it up, is we don't want to lose it, Lismore. It is a help to the town, the restaurants, to the help the shops, and we have a fine courthouse, and we want to keep using it as the facility. So if we could maybe get the support of my colleagues today, that we apply a right to the court service, try and influence them to leave it there. Thank you very much.
Okay, we move on to Councillor Phelan.
Thanks, Chair. I just wanted to come back to get some clarity on some of the answers to my questions, but I do support Councillor Ducey and indeed yourself, Councillor Cronin, in relation to the facility you mentioned. It reminds me of the scene in the movie, that one in the Christmas film where they're out dancing and the floor covering the swimming pool opens up. Can't remember the name of it now, but it just shows what you can do if you multitask, I suppose. But my question in relation to the shopfront improvement scheme, I don't know if Lisa answered in relation to whether there's direct comms going out to the eligible premises in Dungarvan, in case you don't see it, if it's just online, maybe, you know. And Kieran addressed the location part of my question on the public toilet, but do we know when it might be going in to wherever it will go into? Do we have an idea in terms of how soon in advance the upcoming tourism season might be in place? Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Geoghegan and then Councillor Pratt.
Yeah, thanks, Cahir. Look, I just wanted to come in there and concur with everything you said regarding the sports centre in Dungarvan. The sports centre was built back in the mid-1980s. At the time, it was felt that there was demand there for an indoor sports centre here in Dungarvan. But the reality is, with various different clubs and schools over the past number of years, developing their own facilities, particularly AstroTurf facilities and that, and indoor facilities, the sports centre really isn't being used to its full potential. That's my opinion on it. I don't think we're getting bang for our buck. But they're, you know, if we're imaginative and creative, I think that we could get a lot more from the sports centre in Dungarvan. And one example I would use is, in 2 weeks' time, Dungarvan Junior Musical Stage School are actually putting on the Irish premiere of the musical Matilda, and they're putting it on at the sports centre here in Dungarvan because it suits their needs. And they've been using the sports centre now for the past number of years. And they erect a stage there, and they convert it basically into a theatre for the week. And I would invite, I'm involved there myself for the week, and I would invite any member, any official to come down and just take a look at what can be achieved there. The stage that's actually erected, believe it or not, I've said it before, I think I've said it at this forum, is actually larger than the stage at the London Palladium when it's put up. And that's the potential that we have at the sports centre in Dungarvan. And I think it's something we need to look to going forward, that it can be for mixed uses. It can be used for performances, live bands, concerts, musicals, and it can also be used for sporting use as well. But there's massive potential there for sure.
Councillor Pratt.
I'd like to back up Councillor Ducey there regarding the court service in Lismore. I had been in contact with Valerie Lynch from the Mallow District Court regarding this particular issue, and I was also in contact with the media, but there's further investigation being done to find out whether or not it is definitely happening, because it seems to be there's no official announcement, but it would be an awful indictment to lose what is happening in Lismore. I think maybe once a month at the moment, but it does bring people. They are eating in the restaurants, they are spending locally, and I would hope that we can put up the fight and try to ensure that it continues going forward, and there's an onus on all of us. And I actually think we should go further, and we should actually write to the area involved. And I think it changes from Mallow District Court possibly to Waterford if it changes over, but I think we should be putting something in writing from the Dungarvan area to try and ensure that doesn't happen.
Okay, lads, those of you have spoke, you might take down your hands. Councillor Tobin, you're next.
Yeah, I just want to support my two colleagues, Councillor Pratt and Councillor Ducey, about the court service in Lismore. And I think now is the time to do it, because as Councillor Pratt has said, I've been in contact with some of the relevant people as well. And a decision has not been made, but a decision is pending, and there is no decision made yet. So maybe now would be the time to go about it before that decision is made, right? Thank you.
Okay, Lisa, if you want to come in, I think there was a few questions there for you, and then I'd say Kieran.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Apologies, Thomas, for that I neglected your question. Yeah, we do through the town centre liaison, Bernadette in Dungarvan. She would be out particularly looking at, I suppose, the more unsightly buildings. We mightn't get them all, but we definitely target the worst. But also we'd encourage the town centre management group members, obviously, to create awareness. And just a quick update, sorry, came in by email there in relation to the Christmas lights. Finn, who looks after them, has advised the killer is on site today. They should all be down by Thursday. Now, I haven't got a response to why there was a delay, but they are coming down.
Okay, thanks, Lisa, for that. Kieran, just before I bring you in, would it be possible for us to write to the court services
Yeah, I was just going to say that, Carlock, yeah, we'll write to Niall Rooney, the county registrar, in relation to that issue. Yeah, we can write on your behalf in relation to it. And Thomas, we don't have a when. We're just finalising, I suppose, design and cost, overall kind of high level costings and location at the moment. But as soon as we'll have details, we'll get it to you. And the intention is obviously to have something in place for the summer season if we can.
Councillor Ducey, you indicated come back in now. 2 minutes are up now, but look, I'll give you.
Well, I thought I proposed that we would write. You understand that was a foregone conclusion that we would write them. Thank you.
Okay, no problem. Right, we're doing that. We move on. So I don't see any other hands up.
Chair, a very important point of information. The movie I was referring to was "It's a Wonderful Life." Thank you.
Right. Okay, we move on to housing, and Ivan will be taking the answering the questions. Okay, I suppose. Look, I just come in first myself, if I may.
Just to tell you there too, it's Mike Denver that's coming to Cappoquin.
Nathan Carter's coming as well, but anyway, that's not here nor there. So there's 2 of them coming. So, right. Notice in connection, Ivan, with our site in Ardmore again, and I'm bringing this up, I'd say nearly every month at this stage. Our own site in Ardmore, there's a proposal there for 22 affordable houses and a number of social houses. I do know, right, that there was a bit of toing and froing between Coolin and the planners and the council. Maybe you might just explain to us, right, when will we have planning permission in, and why it's not in at this stage, because, you know, there's a lot of young people in the area looking for houses. They're probably inside in every area for that matter, but, you know, this thing has dragged on and dragged on and dragged on. And I'd say the councils are probably sick of myself bringing it up at this stage, but I'm bringing it up for all the right reasons, and I'm asking Ivan maybe to explain, right, what the delay was all along and why planning permission hasn't gone in at this stage. Councillor McGuinness, you were first to indicate, so I'll leave you in.
Yeah, a couple of items. The first one relates to Airbnb and short-term lets. And obviously they can cause difficulties in terms of parking and noise and just general sense of security in estates where they are. But they also have a massive impact on the price of rent in an area. My understanding is that the price offered or the price requested for an Airbnb is not taken into account in any reckoning of average rents, and as such it's not taken into account when looking whether an area should be a rent pressure zone or whether there should be some kind of intervention. On the other side, local authorities have no power to regulate Airbnbs. They don't have to seek planning permission unless they're in a rent pressure zone. So we kind of have a catch-22 situation where local authorities aren't empowered because the rent pressure zone doesn't exist, because the actual price of an Airbnb property, which is driving up rents, isn't factored into the reckoning. So I think that's something that needs to be highlighted. I've mentioned this to Mr. Grimes before, and I'd just like, again, if we could get this feedback up to the Minister for Housing, because it is creating huge issues, not just in Dungarvan, but especially in towns across West Waterford where there's been a growth spurt of Airbnbs. The second item, Cathaoirleach, is obviously we have deep retrofit scheme in almost ready to go in Dungarvan and across city and county, but in those estates and the likes of Childers here in Dungarvan, where deep retrofits will be taking place this year, I think it'd be really useful if the council could pull together the information about retrofit schemes for private homes and make sure that those houses that are in private ownership in those estates at the very least have access to the information and access to the contractors. It might make sense that the contractors might be able to offer some kind of a discount because they're in the area anyway to do some work there, and you'd improve the feel of the estate. You'd add a lot, I think, to those estates, and you'd obviously be getting a move on our environmental agenda and our drive for greener homes, but also that estate management would have a role to play here. And when the deep retrofit is taking place, that there would be attention paid to painting, to presentation in and around the estates, just to get more bang for our buck, I suppose, to get a holistic approach there. And then finally, just something I want to flag up is the adaptation grants to housing stock. And we know that it's underfunded, that very often within the first couple of months of the year, the budget is almost gone. But there are some cases, I suppose, that just aren't even eligible for that, where there's a real need. And I'm talking about council tenants who might have mobility equipment that's very big, that takes up an awful lot of space, and they're having to store it in their homes. And I know of one applicant, for example, who sought an adoption grant to add some kind of additional space, be it a shed or otherwise, to their house, so that they could at least store their mobility equipment outside and not have it in the way of furniture, essential furniture like a kitchen table that's important to everybody in everybody's home. So I just want to make that point as well and see if anything can be done in those kind of circumstances.
Councillor Pratt.
Okay, I'm going to bring it up just two kind of old chestnuts, really. It's just to get updates on them, because they have been going on for a long time now. And luckily, in the first instance, we haven't had a severe winter, but the Arms houses in Tallow, which I've been promised that windows will be done on. And I know that it will be done, but I'm asking that it is done sooner rather than later now, and that we get an assurance that the work will begin, in the next couple of months. I think that's very important for the householders there. And also just wondering if there's any update regarding Coolnakirka and the two houses that are due to would be due to come into our stock, I suppose, really, so that would be able to be as council houses. Is there any movement in that area? Have we any update as to where that's going? And just finally, just in relation to Councillor McGuinness was on about the retrofitting there, and just wondering, will there be extra funding, and will housing estates or council houses, yes, there are estates in the bigger towns and villages, but that the smaller villages will also be, noted when it comes to those retrofitting schemes, and that some funding will be put into those houses as well. Thank you.
Councillor, we're gone all over the place here now, lads, as name's gone. Councillor Phelan, I don't think you got an answer to when the toilet would arrive in Dungarvan. So maybe someone might give you that. You might have some other question as well. You're up next anyway. Okay, Councillor Phelan.
I think Kieran addressed that. It hasn't been decided yet, essentially. So I'm okay with that, Chair. Just in relation to housing, though, I think my specific questions have probably been covered by both Councillor McGuinness and Councillor Pratt, but just a general one, going back to something Ivan would have said at the start of the meeting in relation to possibly being premature in relation to possible development in Old Parish. I think just wondering, more generally speaking, given the probably unprecedented demand for housing and unprecedented low supply for housing, is Ivan able to say, or when might he be able to say, what's on the horizon in terms of new council housing developments in the Dungarvan and wider West Waterford area, in kind of what's coming over the horizon, basically? Can we look forward to any relief in terms of increasing supply to meet the massive demands there? Thanks, Chair.
Councillor Gagan. You're on mute.
Thank you, Cathaoirleach. Yeah, I just have a quick point to make with regard to any retrofitting scheme that will take place. I think it's important that any house that the council would have on long-term lease that would be in an estate where a retrofitting program would be taking place, that those houses would also be included. The reality is we have tenants living in those houses on long-term leases, and I think it would be important that the council would work in tandem with the owner to ensure that the grants, if necessary, that are required maybe from SEAI would be drawn down, so that those houses would also be brought up to standard if work is taking place in a particular housing estate. There's not much point in retrofitting our own stock and then allowing the houses that are on long-term lease to the council to fall even further behind.
Councillor Tobin, you're on mute. Yeah. Councillor Tobin.
Yeah, that's grand. Just to follow up there with Ivan, I spoke to him, I think it was Friday, about the council site in Knockanore. The council has a site in Knockanore, and I spoke, and just that there's no legal problems or anything with it. the council owned the site. It's for 4 houses, and I just like Ivan has told me he'll follow up on it. But when you look at other places that have problems in getting land, we have council land ready to go. And I did speak to Ivan on Friday, and he gave me very positive, and he's going to have a look into it. The other one is I raised a long time ago about the field in Tallow across from the school that belonged to the council, or was. Then when the bus came, whatever this bus was about, I was hardly around from the boom. So when the bus came, that this field was taken over by a housing agency, and they're under the department, and I just don't know, this housing agency under the Department of, is it under housing? And can the field at any time, I was told this by Ivan, but can it be taken back for other purposes rather than housing? There are other, as Councillor Pratt is aware, there are other things that are in mind for Tallow, and this field can be used for other purposes besides housing. That's all I want to know. And thank you.
Okay, Ivan, I bring you in and you might answer all those questions.
Thanks, Cahir. Like, I'll certainly do my best, and
Yes.
if I don't cover an issue, please remind me, and I will. But first of all, in relation to the proposed social and affordable scheme in Ardmore, I would equally express my frustrations at how long this project has taken to advance. I think it's over 5 years since I first engaged with O'Coolan in relation to the project, and you'll be aware, Councillor, that there have been ongoing issues about the adequacy of the servicing of that site, and only in recent months has it been confirmed that there's adequate wastewater capacity, and there was a recent meeting between O'Coolan and our planning department, a pre-planning meeting, and it was very positive. I think there were a few minor issues that O'Coolan were asked to reflect on, and then before they submit their application. I'd be very hopeful that, you know, it's a very positive scheme, and I think the planners were favourably disposed to it. So O'Coolan, in fairness, haven't torn their hair out completely. They've kept plugging away and working to address the issues. So I'd be optimistic that there would be a planning application in the first half of this year, if not sooner. Councillor McGuinness, in relation to the Airbnb situation, it's a very valid point that you make. I wouldn't disagree. It is something that would have to be addressed as a national issue, though. I will be meeting, the Chief Executive and I are meeting with the Housing Minister at a housing summit next week. And if I get an opportunity to mention it to him or his officials, I certainly will do that. Few councillors mentioned the retrofitting program. I think it's important to note that the government are advancing this on 2 separate levels. The funding for local authority stock is coming directly from the department to the local authorities, and the private grants are administered by SEAI. So there is 2 separate streams here, first of all. In relation to the local authority stock, the department are actually picking the houses that we would have submitted for last year, a list of over 200 of our properties, which are the poorest performing from an energy rating perspective, and the department actually selected the 59 that were to be delivered, and they were delivered, in fairness to our capital and technical team. They were delivered last year, and there was an issue around, you know, there was some areas that there was underspending on, and we would have liked to use that money to do additional houses, and we weren't allowed to do that. The issue Councillor Gagan raised in relation to the long-term leases, it's a very valid point as well, and I don't think it would have been taken into consideration at a national level, but there was a case recently that you've highlighted to me, and I will be bringing it to the attention of the department in terms of future delivery, that you know, a little bit of joined up thinking here, because the reality is in some of our older estates, and I'm talking 20 years or more, quite often up to half of those houses have been acquired by the tenants under a tenant purchase scheme, and they're excluded from the council funded scheme. But certainly some very useful suggestions, and we'll do our best to either take them on board or bring them to the attention of the relevant officials in the department. Councillor McGuinness referenced the mobility storage. There are a couple of cases. I'm looking at ways that we might be able to address those individual cases. If that's okay, I won't go into any more details in case I commit to something that's undeliverable. But anyway, Councillor Pratt, in relation to the almshouse windows, there have been delays, admittedly, on that, primarily COVID related. But I also understand that the replacement windows have to be ordered in from abroad, just due to the structure of the houses. I don't have any update for you on Coonakirka, but I will. I'll follow up on that. Councillor Phelan, in relation to new developments in the district, the reason that Chief Executive and I are meeting with the Minister next week is to discuss the draft housing delivery plan that we submitted to the department in December, actually, in relation to our plans for delivery of social and affordable housing over the next 5 years. I think I said at the last meeting that it was a very ambitious but deliverable plan that we've submitted. We haven't had feedback yet, formal feedback yet, from the department as to whether elements of that plan can be included. And it had been my intention to, at the district level, to go through the individual elements of the plan. I can assure you that there are plans for capital projects in the Dungarvan Lismore district, both that will meet the current need at least, and hopefully we'll get additional funding to meet future needs. And as soon as we have feedback, I will be discussing with the council, either collectively at plenary level or at district level. My own preference would have been to do it at district level. I hope to do that in the next month. Yeah, Councillor Tobin raised two issues in relation to Knockanore. You're putting me under pressure, Councillor. You only discussed it with me most recently on Friday, but I know certainly we will look at that. We need to do an assessment of need in the area to see can we make a case to the department for funding for that particular site, but I will revert to you. And then finally, in relation to the site in Tallow, yeah, there was a scheme a number of years ago for development sites that have been acquired by local authorities for which there was a debt attached, and councils were asked to provide details of those schemes and to effectively transfer the sites and the debts over to the housing agency, who would manage them at a national level. The site in particular in Tallow, I have discussed with the housing agency. A number of people have approached me about potential different uses for that site. It's quite large. I think from memory it could be 6 to 8 hectares or acres. I can't remember now, but it is a large site within the town. And I approached the housing agency most recently about a potential use of part of that for a childcare facility, and they indicated to me at that stage they'd have no, if there was a feasible project, it doesn't matter what it's for, that they'd be able to release some part or all of that land back. So it is something I know that the local childcare committee are looking to advance a childcare facility in Tallow, and they have approached about the potential use of that site when they go looking for capital funding from their parent department. So I think I've addressed all of the issues raised here.
Okay, everyone happy enough? We move on. Okay, we move on, lads, to planning. Hugh O'Brien will be taking questions there. I don't think there should be many questions because we have dealt with planning over and over and over the last couple of months. So, look, Councillor Phelan, you've indicated.
Thanks, Chair. Look, it's a recurring question, so I'll keep it short. But the management report again this month shows that number of applications for planning permission continues to increase, and there was talk in previous months about possibly adding extra headcount to cope with that. Just wondering what's the latest with that, and bearing in mind that now as we emerge from the pandemic, there will be a growing expectation for on-site, perhaps pre-planning meetings maybe, which can be quite useful to the overall process. Is the headcount sufficient, and is there sufficient capacity for that kind of planning process that people would be used to, as opposed to the much more, I suppose, tabletop and online process that would have been to the fore during the pandemic, and which I suppose helped the planners keep pace with that surge in planning applications? Thanks, Chair.
Councillor McGuinness.
Gramagach here. Look, yeah, again, I'll keep this brief, and I'm obviously not referring to any particular cases, but in situations where an applicant has been awarded planning permission, and then, you know, before the end of the 5 years, they seek an extension of that planning permission, to what extent does the local authority consider the changed nature of the proposed development and maybe the changed circumstances of the applicant? Talking about situations maybe where an applicant had sought planning permission for a number of dwellings that would have been for family members or that would have spoken to a local housing need, but, you know, circumstances have perhaps changed and they're looking to extend the permission and to change it to incorporate larger, more saleable dwellings, and when the local housing need maybe couldn't as clearly be demonstrated. Just to what extent is that considered? Thanks.
Hugh, you might come in and answer those two questions.
Thanks, Chair. In relation to Councillor Phelan's query, yeah, I suppose we're probably in the process of doing a little bit of restructuring ourselves internally, just to reallocate and reconfigure, I suppose, spatially how we do our work. And how we do it, I suppose, in terms of those work streams, in terms of, say, forward planning policy, development management, and enforcement, and taking in charge. So I think there's a little bit of work we're doing on that as well, in terms of just improving how we do that, changing it, and while also possibly looking at how we manage the pre-planning queries, because I suppose they are, while they're useful maybe to in some respects for applicants, I suppose it is difficult to have enough resources to try and do that in a sort of a strategic manner. So we need to just have a think about our operations around that too. In terms of Councillor McGuinness' query, I suppose there are a lot of questions maybe in that query, and maybe if there was specific issue that he had a concern about, maybe we could take it offline maybe. But I think in broad terms, you know, an application is granted on foot of details submitted and is duly conditioned as such. You know, if that's to be extended, there is legislation to facilitate that in certain circumstances currently, if it has already commenced. But if somebody is looking to change a house type or change some other elements of that, well, then they need to apply, I suppose, in relation to that. And generally speaking, I suppose if it's a change, like rather than if it's a change to an existing permission and it's worded as such, well, then I suppose it's based on that original permission and the conditions in relation to it. So ultimately, I suppose if that person is successful in an amended application, that they still will be required to comply with the original conditions. So whether that's any use to them or not, I don't know. But again, look at if there are some queries, maybe in specifics around the case, we can discuss it offline. Thanks, Chair.
Yeah, thank you. Councillor McGuinness, happy enough with that?
Yeah, actually, despite himself, the question is answered. So thanks very much.
No problem at all.
That's answered my question well. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Right. There's no one else indicating, so we move on to environment. Ray Maloney will take all questions on that. And I suppose, look, we had a meeting this morning in connection with the Moseley Bay, which caused a lot of confusion, I suppose, in the Dungarvan Abbey side area, more so the Abbey side area, seeing that's where it was over the last number of months. And I'm delighted after our meeting today that we have given the go-ahead to, I suppose, construct a new Moseley Bay, if I may, incorporating as much as possible as of the old bay. Look, colour and all that, I suppose, was a problem. So we have agreement on that, and basically, right, it's handed back now to the council. And what I would consider the original Abbey side pattern committee that put this Moseley Bay in place in the first place. So look, a lot has happened, and thank God now, right? Look, we're on the road now to getting, I suppose you could call it a replica, or even I suppose unreplica might be the right name to put on it. But look, I'll bring in Ray, and Ray, you might give us exactly what happened today, if you can, please. Thank you.
Yeah,
Ray.
thank you, Chairman. There's not much more to add. You've given a very concise synopsis of what happened there. I suppose just to go back to the January meeting, was agreed by yourselves members to establish the working group in the first place to examine the reconstruction of the Moseley Boy. And included in that, in addition to yourselves, we invited representatives of Abbeyside Pattern Committee and the Waterford County Museum, and also the appropriate staff with the necessary technical expertise, including heritage and conservation within the council, to be part of that working group. The group has met twice since the January meeting, once on the 17th of January, and again this morning, as you said. And having looked at the options available, as you have said, Chair, the working group has agreed that the Moseley Boy will be reconstructed at 80% of the scale of the original boy. That's the boy that was removed there prior to Christmas, maintaining the aspect ratio in terms of the overall width and height. It was also agreed that elements of the original boy that could be retained would be incorporated into the reconstructed boy, specifically or more particularly part of the
Ray, we can't hear you now, Ray, at the moment. Maybe it's just me.
No, I think he's frozen, Ray. He didn't.
This morning in relation to the colour of the boy.
Yeah, Ray, you're coming and going. You're coming and going there, Ray.
I'll turn off, and I'm actually in the office, Chair, so I'll have to get on to the IT department about the quality of the connection.
Yeah, so you have to make a big complaint here now.
I'll turn off my camera if that's okay to improve the connection.
Yeah, no problem.
There was a detailed discussion on the colour of the boy at this morning's meeting. Originally, when it was reconstructed or refurbished by the Pattern Committee, it was reinstalled, it was green, and it was agreed that that colour would be reinstated on the boy when it's reconstructed. Also, the discussion on the timber lats that were on the superstructure, and again, it is agreed that they would be narrower, which would reflect, again, the construction of the original boy. So we will be issuing an instruction to the Coffee Engineering to commence the reconstruction of the boy, and we're working towards a target date of having it installed for the 17th of March to coincide with the Patrick's Day Parade when it's passing by. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Ray. Councillor Pratt, I think you indicated there.
Thanks, Chair. Look, firstly, I just may as well, I want to thank, I think it was a very good meeting this morning in regard to the Moresby Boy and the working group, and I want to commend Ray and everyone involved and for the swiftness of it, and to see that something that will be put in situ that I believe people will appreciate, and I think, you know, there's a lot of work gone into it, but the fact that they're moving quickly to get it done for St. Patrick's Day, if possible, is a great indictment on them. Just two other issues under, and are we on environment? Can I continue?
Yes, we are. Walk away, Councillor Pratt.
Yeah, just on just wondering, and I know that in relation to the electric cars, I know I brought it up before, but is there any movements, you know, regarding the possibility of installing electric power points, I suppose, in West Waterford, I suppose, the west of Dungarvan? It's just there's none there, they're lacking, or have we any part to play in it, or can we link in with anyone just to, because look, there are, as we can see, there are more electric cars being sold at the moment, and I think it's important that this issue is tackled sooner rather than later by whomever it should be. And also my other one, I believe it's probably environment/roads, but it's regarding bins. So it's the solar powered bins that we have in the bigger towns that have been a great success. The big belly compactor bins. I'm just wondering, like, is there a could they not be placed in some of the smaller towns over time as well? I know they're expensive, but especially in prime locations outside, you know, chip shops and the likes, maybe, where, you know, I think they would serve a great purpose and would prevent, you know, some of the overflowing bins that we have in the smaller towns at the moment, you know, and especially during the summer months when the birds are getting at them and that. So I would ask that be looked at as well over time, and that, you know, Rome wasn't built in a day, but that we would start rolling them out as well to other towns and villages going forward.
Councillor Phelan.
Thanks, Chair. Firstly, I'd like to commend Raymond and colleagues in relation to the ongoing work, the reinstatement in Moresby Boy. Just to note, I suppose, in relation to the green colour, the Pattern Committee would have had very sound historical reasons for originally painting that green when they reinstated it. I believe that's what it would have been in the first place. So that's the reason for going back to that as opposed to the red. I'd also like to commend the Environment Department for their commitment to the ongoing improvement works at the urban forest and watercourse next to Father Toomey's Road. That's a really unique asset, an important asset in terms of being an urban green lung for Dungarvan. The Environment Department deals with the ORIS, the Outdoor Recreation Improvement Scheme, I think it's called, projects and the ongoing efforts towards a coastal path around the town and from Abbeyside. So within that, I wonder, is there scope for lighting at Abbeyside Boardwalk similar to the lighting on the Greenway? And then lastly, vehicular access to the car park beside the Pitch and Putt Club in Dungarvan has been stopped for the past few weeks with good reason. But I'm wondering, will there be a goalpost type barrier that will allow access by cars for walkers that would still prevent access from or by larger vehicles that we wouldn't necessarily want in there? And if so, when can that be expected to be in place, please? Thank you.
Councillor McGuinness.
I too want to commend those involved in the Moresby Boy, and I think I may have mentioned this in the last meeting, but just in case I didn't, is to say that I'm particularly delighted that the contract is with a local company with coffees here in Dungarvan. I think that's hugely important and worthy of noting. There's an issue I suppose I want to bring up, and unfortunately the way the estuary, the Colligan estuary works and the way the tide works, the proof of what I'm about to say is no longer with us. But the illegal dumping that has marred the right bank, if you want to call it that, the right bank of the Colligan estuary has continued apace and has actually got a lot worse in recent weeks. I spotted a huge amount of refuse dumped there fairly, only a matter of days ago, and I was driving obviously, and I couldn't take a photograph to report it. And when I passed that way again, and the tide had been in, a lot of it had been taken away. Where it's entering into a very unique and sensitive environment, and and quite aside from how annoyed and how angry I feel about the illegal dumping, I'm also just really concerned about the impact on our aquaculture and our marine environment. So I don't know what can be done about it, but something does need to be done. That illegal dumping, that affront to the environment and that affront to the people of the town, to our river, to everybody who pays for the correct disposal of their rubbish. I mean, it has to stop, it has to be called out, and something needs to be done on it. The other thing, I suppose, keeping with our famed river, the Colligan, and this is maybe something that falls to Quilta, but maybe the district council can write to Quilta. There's serious and significant subsidence in and around the walkway at Colligan Wood. When you cross the footbridge and turn right, if you're walking that direction, the pathway is coming apart in many areas. Now, this is a very popular place for people to walk, for runners, for joggers, for mountain bikers, and indeed for people walking there, with children as well. So we really need to tackle that walkway, and maybe it doesn't fall to this body, it falls to Quilta to look after that, but a letter to make them aware of it would do absolutely no harm. And then keeping with the Colligan theme and the issue of subsidence, one that I had raised previously is Water's Edge and the subsidence there, and I had asked that the environment section and the planning enforcement section, and indeed roads, would come together, put their heads together and come up with some solution to this, because it is, in my view anyway, putting, I suppose, transport and potentially sewage infrastructure at risk there, and ultimately people's homes may become at risk because of it. So those are my three questions.
Thank you, Councillor Tobin.
Thank you, Chair. Just again, having been present at board meeting about the Moresby Boy, I would like to congratulate Ray and Kieran and the team for the swift way and now that they have gone about replacing it. And I'll just sort of say that, I suppose, I don't like being an egotist, but to say that I'm glad I said at the last meeting, it was never the intention of Waterford County Council. Waterford County Council and I'm in it for 23 years, never went out to destroy or remove anything. And it was never their intention to remove or destroy the Moresby Bay. It was always the intention of those in the council and us as councillors that it would be replaced. And I hope that will be get as much quotation as the one that we were supposed to be destroying the heritage of Dungarvan. The second one, that in my 23 years as a councillor, I have never seen such litter on the sides of rural roads. Newspapers, people, imagine that you'd just open the window of the car when you'd be finished reading a newspaper. Now maybe the person that done it probably wasn't very capable of reading it, only to look at the pictures and throw it out the window. That's what's happening around the roads. I'm sure you've seen it. Full newspapers. Two more things that are beer cans, the cans, and also the coffee cups, of course. They're the old thing. But a new thing seems to be the cans. They're both beer and soft drinks. The sides of the roads are littered. I don't know and don't tell me it's the charge, because the charge to the bin has nothing at all to do with it. The charge in the bin is the household stuff. I feel sorry for the people that using bins for their household waste. They have to pay for it. But that other stuff, and I think there should be the beer companies would have to be made pay something towards removing the cans off the sides of the roads. Thank you.
Councillor Phelan, you were in already, so I'm going to take Councillor Geoghegan and we'll leave you back in then, because Councillor Geoghegan hasn't been in already, okay?
Thanks, Cathaoirleach. Yeah, I just want to say that I'm delighted with the way the restoration of the Moresby Bay project is commencing, and I think I'll just say that I'm really looking forward to seeing it back on the causeway, as I think the vast majority of the public are. So I think that's certainly to be welcomed. I just want to commend Ray for all the work that he has done on it to date, despite some of the negative commentary that may have appeared on social media and whatever. We'll leave that old nonsense, go over our heads, and we'll do our jobs as councillors and as council officials.
Councillor Geoghegan, I'd say.
I'm back. I'd say. I went out there for a second.
You finished?
And the other issue I wanted to bring up was I'm delighted to see that the illegal traveller encampment that was in place at Kilrush for the past number of years has finally gone. But I would just ask that the council would secure the site there and clean the site and make sure there isn't a repeat of what we've seen there over the past number of years. What the businesses and the residents indeed living in that particular part of town had to put up with for the past number of years was nothing short of a disgrace. There was all sorts of shenanigans went on there, which I won't go into detail here. I think most of us know exactly what happened there, but we must avoid a repeat of it. And I would ask that before we get into the late spring, maybe, and into the early summer, that site would be secured. And we don't want to repeat there. There was businesses there. They almost went out of business because of what went on over there. And just in relation to the point that Councillor McGuinness made regarding the litter at the in the Colligan River, the reality is we have a major problem there regarding illegal dumping emanating from the halting site, and we might as well call a spade in relation to it. There's a major problem there. There's rubbish being dumped in over the wall every single day, and the tide is just taking it off and washing it away. And we've groups like the Tidy Towns Committee doing excellent work around, and yet we've that type of stuff, that type of behaviour going on, and that type of behaviour being tolerated in Dungarvan, and it's not good enough.
I would agree with you, Councillor Geoghegan, 100% right. That's not good enough, because it's costing us an awful lot of money, and it's costing each and every household money, right, to go away and get rid of that rubbish. And why should someone else be allowed kitchen throw it over the wall and leave it be washed away? I would also agree with you in connection with the site. That site would have to be cordoned off and make sure, right, what happened there will never again happen. Councillor Phelan?
Thanks, Chair, for letting me back in again. I forgot to ask one question, and it was in relation to, in the report, there's a mention of necessary tree felling at Land's End, if I'm reading correctly, at Land's End Housing Estate. So I'm just wondering, have the residents there been made directly aware of that planned felling of trees by the council? And if not, could that be done before the felling is to be carried out so that they have advanced knowledge of it? And I'd just like to concur with Councillor Tobin there in relation to roadside litter, something I brought up at the last plenary meeting, and Director of Service Galvin responded. I'm actually with a very positive answer, but I'm reluctant to kind of go back over it again, because for fear it might only inadvertently encourage further dumping, because I think particularly over the years of the pandemic, people have kind of almost given us a license to throw out this and obviously up more disposable stuff like coffee cups and stuff, which I'm kind of blue in the face of both talking about and picking up. So anything we can do to counteract that, the better. Thanks.
Okay, Ray, you might have answers for some of those questions at least.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. My screen is frozen here, so I'm just going to leave the camera off if that's okay. Councillor Pratt, in relation to the EV charging infrastructure, yeah, we have a draft charging strategy which will look at installing EV charging points at various locations throughout the county, including various towns and villages in West Waterford. There is funding available from the SCAI for that work at the moment. We just need to finalise that document and get it approved. In relation to solar bins, my area of responsibility is the three major urban centres, so that's where we have been concentrating our solar bins. So we can certainly have a look at the next phase of that and talking to the roads department about installing some within some of the more rural towns and villages. Councillor Phelan, in relation to the works of the watercourse at Father Toomey's, we've done extensive works there to try and improve our access to the watercourse there with a view to facilitating more regular cleanup of that area. A lot of the work had to be done outside of the nesting season, so we're happy that we've had that completed before the 1st of March. In relation to the ORIS and the lighting of the boardwalk, the ORIS scheme is not necessarily the preserve of the Environment Department. It actually is part of our community or economic development section. We have done some of the works for them, but I can certainly talk to Johnny Brunnock in relation to the proposals for lighting up the boardwalk in Abbeyside. In relation to the car park at the pitch and putt course, we put in a very temporary measure there to close off access to that location once the caravan had vacated that site, and we will look at putting in or reinstating that access, as I say, with a goalpost or some other type of structure there that will restrict large vehicles getting into that site. Councillor McGuinness, in relation to you refer to the right bank of the Collegan Estuary, I presume that's the western bank is really what we're talking about here, depending on what direction you're travelling in. We have carried out some cleanups there recently, and we'll continue to monitor that situation, because some of that material, when it gets removed by the tide, ends up on the Wenang side of the estuary, resulting in further cleanups. In relation to your comments on the subsidence in the footpaths in Collegan Woods, we will certainly bring that to the attention of Quilcha. I received your emails in relation to subsidence at Water's Edge, and we will talk with the taking in charge section and roads and come back to you on that with a suitable solution. Councillor Tobin, litter on rural roads, yeah, it's when you get dieback in the grass and the verges this time of the year, it tends to become more evident. Cans and coffee cups are obviously an ongoing problem. I would hope that when we get the deposit return scheme in place, hopefully by the end of this year or early next year, that the cans will have some sort of value, and that people won't be throwing them on the side of the road, and that they will seek to recycle them and get their deposits back for them in that way. In relation to Councillor Gagan, in relation to the traveller encampment at the Kilrush site, we'll certainly have a look at that and talk to the landowner there with agree to securing the site and carrying out the cleanup. I think that's about it. Cahill, I think I've covered everything.
Councillor McGuinness, briefly.
Yeah, Cahill, look, and thanks for letting me back in. And look, I appreciate that the illegal dumping there, correct, on the western bank of the Collegan estuary is deeply frustrating for officials as it is for councillors. But I suppose it's not good enough that we just continue to clean it up. I mean, what kind of enforcement is open to us? I know that CCTV isn't currently available to us to detect criminal illegal dumping, but surely to God, the council has an ability to ascertain whether people residing close to that location have bins, that that bins are available, and to detect the illegal dumping. I mean, it's happening, as Councillor Gagan rightly said, on a day in, day out, it's happening. And we don't know the half of it because, as you said, Mr. Maloney, it is being washed away. It is being washed away in the tide. But, you know, how do we enforce it? Because it's not just good enough to keep cleaning up somebody else's rubbish. You know, we have to detect those who are responsible, and we have to prosecute them as appropriate.
Thank you. Ray, do you want to respond to that?
Yeah. Just on Councillor McGuinness's comment there, I suppose if when we find rubbish, we examine it to identify if there's any evidence within that as to where the rubbish has come from. In relation to, we can certainly issue notices to local householders, asking them to provide evidence under the presentation of bylaws as to how they're disposing of their rubbish, and we have done that in a number of occasions, not in this specific area, but in other areas within the town. So it's something we can look at. It's probably something that we need to have a discussion again with the housing department to come up with a solution in terms of the waste management in that area. Chair, if I may, just to come back to, I missed one question there from Councillor Phelan in relation to tree felling at Land's End. At this point, we haven't done the circularization of the residents in Land's End, but we will do that prior to commencement of the work. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, that seems to satisfy everyone. Right, we move on to roads. I'm led to believe our roadworks program will be in front of us next Monday. So maybe there won't be as many questions, right, because we're cut for time at the moment. So look, right, Councillor Phelan, you have the floor.
I think Councillor Pratt's ahead of me, Chair.
Councillor Pratt, yes, sorry, Councillor Pratt.
I thought Councillor Tobin got in before me, but I don't mind whichever way you want to go, but you want to.
They're jumping all over the place here now.
Yeah, they might be just giving trouble.
You're very honest, John, so go ahead, John, because you're...
Yeah, no problem. Look, I have three quick ones anyway to bring up. Look, I have spoken to Gabriel, on a couple of these, but I just want to mention them just to let people know, I suppose, publicly. One of them is, look, I just want an update on when the footpath under the active travel will continue in Tallow. It's just that, look, some people are of the belief it's not going to go ahead and that it's stopped, and I just want to get that out there, that work is going to continue when the time is appropriate for it to be finished, okay? The second one is regarding, it might be the NRA, and I have spoken to you offline, but it was brought to my attention again, the Lismore Road from the bridge up to the monument. It's getting excessively bad, and I do know that there was an incident there recently, a car actually, with the roughness of the road, and there was a bit of look, they reckon the road didn't help what happened there, you know, at that time. I won't say much more than that, but it isn't in the best condition, and to know when that could possibly get continued from where the new surface is up to the monument. And look, another one then is, look, it's probably for Tallow I'm talking about, but it's probably for a lot of towns and villages. Is there any mechanism whereby we can look at maybe undergrounding more wires, you know, the ESB wires, and they're just so unsightly, and the poles going forward? Or is there any mechanism where we could look at expanding that in, and as I said, Tallow initially, but I'm looking at other places as well, if we could have a program or a way of doing that? I think it's important that we could make progress in that area.
Councillor Phelan.
Thanks, Chair. Just in terms of that postponed workshop, when it goes ahead next week, will that be covering roads, footpaths and active travel? And in relation to specifics then, when it comes to footpaths, ones that are used particularly, we'll say, by elderly people, I think need extra attention. I'm thinking of Friary Street in Dungarvan, where the footpaths in bad order in certain parts. Was good to see now. I do appreciate that. So some potholes were fixed there recently on the road itself, but the footpath could do with attention. And similarly, the footpath to the side of the parish church in Dungarvan, again, the road was improved there not so long ago, but the footpath itself is quite broken up in parts. And in relation to the junction of Mitchell Street and Yall Road, the pedestrian crossing lights are out there quite a while, as far as noticed, still out anyway. So I'm wondering, do we know when they might be fixed? And then finally, I would like to commend the department for adding the extensive network of street lights near GSK to Dead Shore app. There's quite a lot of them out there, but hopefully now they've been added, and I believe engineers from KLS have been tasked with looking at them. They'll be fixed soon, because again, that's a very popular walking route for people living out that area. Thanks, Chair.
Councillor Tobin.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I just mentioned this to Gabriel bringing up the old chestnut about the square poles for holding up the signs, and the round poles, so we won't get, because I think Gabriel changing, they're still around. But I was wondering, could there be an audit done in the west or in the Dungarvan, Lismore electoral area, an audit of all signposts? See, there are poles rusting, there are signs missing, and now that with the change, a lot of changes, there are signs up that could be removed, and there are an awful lot of the signs, again, I'd say some of them are decorating the pubs in America and probably Lanzarote and several places like that. So could we get during the summer maybe a student or someone, to do an audit of all the signposts, and that we replace the ones that are falling down and rusty, replace the ones that are missing, and take down some of the ones that we don't need. And then I go back again and I would say, if we're replacing the poles, can we replace them with square ones, and then they can't be twisting them around and sending people the wrong way. We have had this discussion before, so I know the answer I get about the poles, but the other one about the audit about the signs, I'd like to, well, I'd like to compliment the outdoor council staff, because I think we've a lot of work done. We had a mild winter, but at the same time, I think we're keeping on top of it. A lot of drains have been opened, and that's the answer to it. If we can open the gullies, keep the water off the roads, I think that's the answer to a lot of our problems in the Lismore area under Josephine and John and the workmen. We've quite a lot of it done. And any place that I've asked them to do it, they've went and done it. And I think that's we can drive, we are councillors, and we're driving over the water too. And if you see it lodging, and I've seen it, I rang Josephine or ring John, and there's a drain open. It's very important. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tobin. Councillor Ducey. Now, lads, we'll be brief because we're cut for time, okay? So keep going, Councillor Ducey.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, an old chestnut of mine. And I was on to Gabriel, and I was on to engineers before him. I'm back since I became a councillor. Back in '70s, late '60s, '70s.
That's an old chestnut now. Come on.
Yes, and it's a very important one. Yes, the summer will come again, and there'll be little oaks, they'll grow big trees out of it, and there'll be more chestnuts and chestnuts. But anyway, there was with great cooperation from landowners, sightlines and bins on dangerous roads, especially narrow roads. There was ditches moved, and the council put up post and railing. And now this post and railing is rotten with the last 10 years, and it's in an awful state now at the moment. And we need to get them replaced. And you know, right, you can say to the landowners to keep it responsibility to keep in their stock, but these landowners and their maybe parents before, or some of their parents before, cooperated and give goodwill, and to give the ditch and give so there's only goodwill now always needed to replace the old post and rail that is rotten, and it's a health and safety issue, and it's important to do it urgently. And I was glad there that brought up about John Councillor Platt brought up about the charging of the electric cars. You know, there should be a point or two in every car park in every small town now, and it's a priority. And I'm glad that there is money made available from Active Travel, which will be very, very appreciated by people visiting that have electric cars that can't charge and are worried about in case they won't make it home or make it to a point. Thank you.
Councillor Geoghegan. Sorry, Councillor Nugent. Sorry, Councillor Nugent.
Chair, just a couple of things. Last month, Gabriel, I brought up about the quay in Dungarvan, and I was just looking at it again yesterday. Like the quay in Dungarvan on a Saturday night or a Friday night, there's a huge amount of visitors there, and I mean, by looking at it, like there's going to be an awful lot of accidents there, and that spoils the weekend for any visitor, and it gives a bad vibe. When do you think that you will be able to do this repair work? Will it be before the summer? That's my question. My second question is on the LIS scheme, any funding for that for this year, yes, or are you still awaiting it? The same as the general funding for roads. And what kind of numbers are left in the list at this moment in the Dungarvan Lismore area for to be included in the LIS scheme? Just a rough figure. And just on the road from Clashmore, we'll say to the Bog Road, there's an awful lot of tree felling. Is that a part of, we'll say, the fibre optic cables that are going there, or is it a Waterford County Council initiative? Because it's a very, very good initiative if it is. An awful lot of trees are being cut at the moment. Thank you.
Councillor Geoghegan and then Councillor McGuinness. So Geoghegan is first. Councillor Geoghegan is first.
Yeah, thanks, Cahill. I just want to concur with what Councillor Tobin said there regarding carrying out an audit on the various different signage that we have throughout our area. I think it's very noticeable that, we're constantly adding to the signage that's put in place. We're putting extra bollards in place, and there's a constant build-up of extra signage, but we don't ever seem to be removing signage that's unnecessary. And I think there's a very fine line between putting something in that's necessary and actually creating clutter. And I think that there's a tendency to have that happen. And there's quite a number of places throughout Dungarvan that I could point to that within a matter of feet, there's 3 and 4 poles on the side of the footpaths. And I think it's something that really needs to be dealt with. And I think we'd certainly improve our streetscape if we were to deal with that. So I think, if we were to carry out an audit, it would certainly be helpful. The other thing I think the council needs to up its game on this year with regards to roads is white lining. Dungarvan, for example, would be a very popular place for people to do their driving lessons and indeed to do their driving tests. With quite a number of junctions throughout the urban area, the white lining is non-existent, or indeed it's very, very poor. So I think it's important that we would ensure that all of the junctions are lined properly, and I think it's something that we should be doing throughout the summer. And in fact, over the last week or so, I've been compiling areas that I think need to be dealt with, and I'll be submitting them to the roads department in the next few days. And the final issue I want to bring up is it's an ongoing issue in Clash in Ballynacorty, and that is there's an ongoing issue in that particular area with regards to flooding and ponding on the road there. So I've had a discussion with you, Gabriel, before on this matter, and I just asked that you would deal with it. It's an ongoing issue there, and it needs to be dealt with sooner rather than later. I know there's not an easy fix to it, but we've got to start somewhere.
Councillor McGuinness.
I'm going to fly through this because I know we're under pressure. I would have raised an issue consistently going back over the last probably year and a half or more about a landing derrick for use by fishermen at K Helvik, and I would have engaged with BIM and a number of other agencies and bodies with regard to sourcing one. I understand that although funding might be available to install a landing derrick, there might be some difficulty, I suppose, in how and by whom it's managed. And I just appreciate maybe an update on that. I know, Gabriel, you would have been in touch with colleagues in other local authorities, and just to get a sense of where we're at there, what the next steps and what level of involvement we need to see from the fishermen themselves and from the community in general. Another thing I would have called for before and is the installation of cat's eyes on the main road going through on Shanafubble. Now I realise it's not a regional road, it's a local road, and that cat's eyes were being installed on the regional roads first. But this particular road in that particular area is subject to heavy fogs. At time, it is one of the foggiest places in the world. I would contend, and I think it would really contribute to road safety, and it'd be very important to see cat's eyes installed on that particular road sooner rather than later. A contender, I suppose, for an active travel project, and I want to mention it here. It is the Stucco Lane, the lane that runs down by Abbeyside Football Club, and it's in very frequent use by people who play and train at the club, and indeed by pedestrians who are accessing the boardwalk in that location. It's in an area of fairly dense housing where there's a big population nearby, and I think it would really benefit from not just some kind of footpath or or a separate area for walking as opposed to driving, but also additional lighting and just a bit of a spruce up. And I think it'd be a very, very strong contender for active travel. Likewise, in Unshanafobble, between John Paul's pub and the Common Luach Classic Gael, the GA grounds there, again, a stretch of road that you wouldn't maybe know to look at it, but that's frequently used by pedestrians and cyclists. It's in constant use. There's a number of bends. It's not particularly safe for pedestrians or indeed cyclists. And I would like to see some kind of a footpath and perhaps lighting put in there, whether that would come under chlor or active travel. I suppose we leave up to the roads department, but just to flag that. To note as well the resurfacing of the pathway from K Helvig down to the Cove on Cowan Helvig. It's a fantastic job, but it'd be great to see maybe some lighting there, and it could be the outdoor recreational infrastructure scheme, or indeed active travel might be able to put some lights in there to light it. And you know, if that were done, you'd have a very, very long walk of some significant kilometres, I suppose, that'd be safe and well lit from the tip of Cowan Helvig back to back halfway in, I suppose, on the peninsula of Unrhyne. There's a number of other issues. I just want to say thanks for a number of things. I won't labour the point, but to thank the roads department for getting signs on potholes and all host of other things fixed recently, but also to flag up the Gartnadeha Bridge, Gartnadeha Lower. I did flag that as something that needed to be inspected. There's some damage there, and it would be very important to get it looked at and any damage addressed. And then finally, Cathaoirleach is, I know we're looking at a roads programme next week. Something that I'd be very keen to see is that when we're discussing expenditure on the footpaths programme in towns in West Waterford, we would look to the residential areas, we would look to the estates. We did focus on the town centres last year. I would like if we could shift that focus into some of the older estates that are in dire need for footpath improvements.
Thank you. Just two things myself, Gabriel, before I leave you in. Fleming's Pub. Look, everyone knows now, right, that the council are in charge of that, of what was a pub one time, but the junction, which is a very, very dangerous junction, when can you see work carried out on that? Or do we have the money now to carry out that work, I suppose, really? And I suppose, look, the real question is, when will the work, do you think, will commence at Fleming's Pub? The second one, it was one I brought you to see some time back. It was the graveyard, or the new graveyard in Abbey Side. I got an awful lot of complaints about people using it. Look, probably not using it for all the, maybe some using it for all the right ideas, and maybe more of them using a shortcut and whatnot. But look, there's no problem with that. But dogs is the problem. People leave off their dogs inside, and next thing they're up in a grave and they're digging holes in it. And to be fair, that's not good enough anymore. I think there is a solution, Gabriel. I think we looked at that today. We were out there. My view is, right, that we should close off the lower access to the graveyard in Abbey Side. I don't see, or maybe have it in such a way, right, that cyclists and dogs and whatnot can't use it. But look, you might give me an update on that. Thank you. So, Gabriel, the floor is yours.
Could I just come in there, Council? Could I just come in there, I can agree with you regarding the graveyard on Abbey Side. That's a very simple solution to it. There's been an ongoing issue there for quite some time. And now that the walkway is actually developed on the other side of the graveyard, there's no need for that open space, that open walkway into that graveyard on Abbey Side. And I think it should be closed. I think you're right.
Yes. Anna, you want to come in there just before I leave Gabriel in? I know we're running out of time now.
Well, just here, look, you are out of time. We've come to 2 hours. It's 4:30, and there's quite a number of items still left on your agenda.
Okay. Can I look for an extension of time for
Councillor Phelan?
I'll second Councillor McGuinness.
How long are you having the extension to, Ciarán?
2 hours.
Sorry?
How long of an extension?
We'll go over 20 minutes, Ray, and hopefully we'll have a walk done between that.
Will we?
Okay, so lads, look, come on, we need to
I
move.
would take
on.
half.
I propose at least, what are we allowed to propose to?
20 minutes, half an
Well,
hour.
technically, your meeting is 2 hours.
Well, I propose half an hour minimum anyway, 'cause there's a lot to get through. And
Okay,
Councillor Gagg has a motion on the agenda as well.
Could we move on with the agenda and maybe get answers back from the officials, maybe
Yes,
in writing? That might be helpful.
Yes, we'll do that now. So look, there's a proposer, and have I got a look?
I'm seconding 30 minutes as well.
Right, okay. That's grand, 30 minutes. So listen, we'll move on. Gabriel, you might answer those queries as they were as they came to you.
Okay, I'll be brief and I'll quickly go through them. Okay, Councillor Pratt, the footpath in Tallow, yeah, that is to be completed. We haven't been putting pressure on the contractor because of weather, and we know when he gets back there'll be traffic management in place. So if he starts, if he starts later, it's better because you have less disruption, longer evenings. But it will be completed from where we finish there before Christmas out to the New Link Road. In relation to the bridge to the monument in Lismore, yes, the pavement there is deteriorating. We have a traffic calming scheme there as well, which we need to look at the footpaths. We probably need to go to a part 8. It's going to be a fairly big scheme, and we'll be coming back to you, but it's something that's on our programme and on the TI's programme as well that requires attention. Just in relation to undergrounding ESB cables in our towns and villages, yes, it needs to be done. There's significant costs involved. It's getting a funding source. Normally it falls back to the local authority to fund it all. And as a part of an urban renewal scheme where we have significant funding, we carry out the work. Where we don't have the funding, then we have to leave well enough alone. But we can put ducts in place for in the longer term to facilitate it, where we're doing some footpath works. Councillor Phelan, just lads, in relation to the roadworks programme, we haven't got our allocation yet. We're expecting it this week. So we intend to have the workshop next week to tie up the roadworks programme, footpath and active travel. And I know you've mentioned different queries in relation to active travel, and we'll tie all those up in our workshop and we'll have a special meeting thereafter. Just in relation to Councillor Phelan, the Mitchell Street lights, yeah, we'll start those, and the GSKs on Deadshore and Kerry will attend to those. Councillor Ducey, just in relation to the fencing that was erected some time ago, depending on what agreements were in place, we'll look at them on a case-by-case basis and we'll work with the landowners in relation to replacing it with post and wire where appropriate. Councillor Nugent, in relation to the quay in Dungarvan, yes, I acknowledge there's issues there. We've decided we're going to carry out temporary repair. We're currently going to go to tender with the intention of appointing a contractor to having the local repair work carried out before the summer season. Just in relation to LIS, we have no funding allocation to date for this year, and we wait same from the Department of Agriculture. We have a significant number of schemes still on our list. I'd imagine probably 50 applicants waiting LIS schemes. Just in relation to tree felling, yeah, significant progress has taken place in the district over the last couple of months, and I acknowledge the work being carried out by the landowners, and also noting that where we have fibre optic, trees are being cut as well in relation to that. Councillor Tobin, in no particular order, just in relation to signs, and raised by Councillor Gagan as well. The first thing I'd say, if community groups, tidy towns, want to do a list of the signage in their area that needs addressing, we'd welcome that initially before we do the audit. So if community groups come back to us with issues or tidy, address those shortfalls in signage. Just in relation to drainage, yeah, drainage is key, and we're carrying out a lot of drainage works where our resources allow. Councillor Gagan, yeah, the lining, lads, yeah, I acknowledge the statutory lining needs to be in place, and where we do road programs or strengthening works, we do new lining. But look, in particular where we've driving roads, I'll ensure that the statutory lining is freshened up because it is very important for a learner driver. In relation to clash in Ballycorty and the drainage issue, that's a long-term issue There's no easy solution there. It is in a hollow, so you need significant pipes, drains, but it's something that we'll review and look at. Councillor McGuinness, in relation to Helvig, we are in discussions with BIM in relation to a lifting device. There is issues in relation to statutory inspection and insurance and in relation to who manages the hoist as well. And that's something that we're teasing out at the moment and see if we can get I suppose a resolution to it. Councillor McGuinness, just in relation to the Cat's Eyes and Shanapubble, it's not a regional road. Funny at the moment is prioritising our regional roads first, but it's something I do accept the point you're making, but ideally we need to get our regional roads completed first before we move to the local roads where there's issues. You mentioned a number of schemes, and we'll leave those for active travel, and we'll leave those for discussion as our workshop and our meetings next week. That's okay. Just moving quickly on, Councillor Cronin, Fleming's Pub. I suppose the first step in that was purchasing the premises. We've done that. That will allow us to knock some of the outer buildings and some of it to improve the sightlines. We'll be carrying out a feasibility study for TII, and I would be hopeful that we'll get some work done there later this year. Just in relation to the graveyard in Abbeyside, raised by Councillor Cronin and Councillor Gagan, yes, I agree that it's not appropriate for the walk through the graveyard. It is a scheme that can easily be resolved, as you said, and I think we can include it under an active travel scheme, which we can discuss again next week. I think that's briefly as I ran through as quickly as possible to the issues you've raised. Thank you, Cahill.
Thank you, Gabriel. Jocelyn, you haven't anything to add to that? No, Jocelyn.
I know you're okay, Tom. It's okay.
Okay, thanks, Jocelyn. Everyone happy enough with that? So we move on. Taking in charge, Donald Murphy or Donald Morrico.
They're just for noting, are they?
Don, you don't want to speak on them, do you?
No, okay, here, League, if you're happy enough what you have, if you want to send me any direct questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Okay, so that's just for noting. So, okay, we move on. That's section 38. James Murray, you're taking them, James. You might just run down the three. I think that's three.
Yep. I'd hope to go through some of the active travel program, but we'll leave that till next week. And Lisa Mulcahy has been is part of the active travel team and has been developing these two section 38s, and she'll just run through them quickly for you. They've been advertised, and I suppose they're very positive. So Lisa, if you want to take it away there.
Yeah.
Okay,
The first one is Dungarvan and Tournor. We're proposing a new pedestrian crossing close to the entrance of Tournor Park. This proposal also includes improved pedestrian crossings on the roundabout there at Tournor Court and an improved pedestrian and cyclist offering along the Duxpool Road, particularly on the eastern side there in the vicinity of Dungarvan, the entrance to Dungarvan. We're hoping to tighten that up so as to improve things for our vulnerable road users. There were two submissions, both welcomed the proposal, and one made some observations and some suggested alterations to the design, which we will look at and review when it comes to a final detailed design.
Okay, I'm looking for a proposal and a seconder.
Opposed, Councillor Gagan.
I'll second Councillor Phelan.
Okay. Councillor Pratt, you have a question to ask?
Apologies, Chair. And one of the other ones, I thought she might be taking them in block.
We move on. We move on. Councillor Phelan, are you?
No, it was only just either a proposal second to thank James and Paul for cooperating with the residents there. Thanks.
We move on, so Lisa, to number 2.
Okay, the second one then is at Sallybrook, there on the Clonay Road. There are two entrances, as you know, into Sallybrook Estate, both of which are particularly wide. So we're proposing to tighten up both entrances, both junctions into the estate, therefore improving things again for vulnerable road users and slowing down vehicles as they enter and exit the estate. We had 4 submissions to that proposal,
Again, all welcomed the scheme, and some of them made some observations and suggested changes to the design, which again we will look at and review in more detail when it comes to a final design stage.
I propose it.
Second, Councillor Phelan.
Councillor Phelan, second. Who proposed it?
Pat Nugent.
Okay, Councillor Nugent proposed, Councillor Phelan seconds that, right? We move on to number 3. I have down here traffic calming for Villarstown, is that right?
That might be Josephine's, I'd say. It's not
Yeah.
mine.
Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah,
Lisa,
okay.
you don't have anyone else, Lisa, have you?
No, that's all I have.
Yeah. Thank you now very much, Lisa. Thank you. Okay, traffic calming Villarstown.
Cahill, I'll take that.
No problem.
Yeah, and I suppose it was on display from the 30th of November to the 27th of December. Submissions closed on the 10th of January. We've 10 submissions received. Briefly, the proposal is a footpath to connect the current footpath at the housing estate to the existing footpath in the kind of the middle of Villarstown. And I suppose as a result of that, we're going to be narrowing the road as well. So we've 2 objectives here: is to provide connectivity from the housing estate into the centre, and it's also narrowing the carriageway will give a reduction in speed. The report was submitted to yourselves. We're recommending that we proceed with the works as outlined, and we're looking for your approval for same. Thank you, Caroline.
Okay, there's 4 with hands raised, right? Councillor Tobin. Sorry, Councillor Pratt. Councillor Pratt is first.
Thank you, Chair. Look, I see the merits in the work, but I know from reading the submissions that some of the issues there were looking at that they wouldn't narrow the thoroughfare. But I'm just wondering, is there any way of putting in calming measures there without narrowing and using the green area for the work so that they retain the actual width of the road in that vicinity? You know, I think it's a strong feeling of the community there.
Councillor Tobin. You're muted, I'd say, Councillor Tobin.
Yeah, I'm trying to be unmuted. I'm fine now. Just to carry on there as Councillor Pratt, and you know, it's a very small community, and I'm sure nearly every councillor, I presume that every councillor has been contacted, and Villarstown is a very small community, and I think that anything that would be done there should be as much unity among the people as possible, and it shouldn't be for us to maybe do something that would divide the community or make things awkward for any members of the community. In the submissions, I was just wondering if Gabriel is the submission from the Tidy Towns with the signatures of 264 people. Personally, I didn't even think there was that many living there, but so there are 264 people signed petition. Would their signatures have been taken into consideration as a submission? Because I believe, like Councillor Pratt, if there was any other way of doing traffic calming there, if we could get the agreement of all the people, it would be far better than we as a councillors here today doing something that's going to maybe not keep harmony in a very united village.
Councillor Phelan.
Thanks, Chair. Look, I'd echo the sentiments of previous speakers. My question, I suppose, for Gabriel would be, if the objective of narrowing the road is to reduce speed, could that be achieved by other means? For instance, there is a raised speed bump of sorts at the other end of the village. Could you have the same at the top end coming from Germania Gates, so you've got the same either end to reduce speed as people enter the village or the main street from either side? I think I'd note that that wide, or the width of that street and that streetscape is kind of a heritage feature in of itself, and possibly unique in Ireland in terms of it being a planned village like that with a particularly and purposefully wide street scape. So I'm just wondering, or just concerned, I suppose, that if you have the footpath where it's going to be going, as opposed to being fully on the green space, that you could be encroaching on the road, and that is part of the objective. But if the reason is to reduce traffic, could it be done by other means? And also, if you do reduce the width on those occasions when there is traffic going to the hall and that kind of thing, you're just having the cars will be parked that bit further out, and they might have been encroaching onto the carriageway. And although that will definitely reduce speed, it would also possibly more likely to cause collisions, perhaps, if their cars are having to park further out than they might have in the past. So I'm just wondering, would other measures, rather than narrowing the carriageway, achieve the same result of reducing speed? And in terms of reducing speed, is there evidence to suggest that speed is an issue there in the first place that does need to be tackled? Thanks, Chair.
Councillor McGuinness.
Yeah, I'm going to say something broadly similar to what's already been said, just to say that I would have concerns about what's proposed, and the fact that, as I can see it, a very, very large portion of the community in that village aren't happy with what's being proposed, and there is an issue, I suppose, about access to car parking spaces, not for general day-to-day parking, but when there is something on, when there's an event or a special occasion. And the village of Billierstown, I suppose, is a hub for a community has a hinterland, for which it is the hub for the community. And also, I think that there is something unique and special about Billierstown. It's a very it's a lovely looking village. It is strikingly different from many of the other villages around West Waterford. And I think narrowing the road mightn't be the way to go. There are other ways to create pinch points that would slow traffic there. But it is important that we would have a footpath connecting the estate around the bend there with the main part of the village. And I think that is important. And I think everybody who has made a submission, everybody certainly who's been in touch with me, is at pains to point that out, that they do want a footpath there. They just don't want it pushed out on the road. Then another issue that I have, and as being somebody who's in and around Dungarvan an awful lot of the time, who's walking on the streets here, walks through the squares and walks down the quay, is the use of cobble block. I really don't think that we should be using cobble block for civil engineering projects anymore. I think once bitten, maybe twice bitten, thrice shy. I think that needs to be relooked at. I think there needs to be another way around that. So look, those are my points. I won't be supporting. I just may as well say it straight out. I won't be supporting the project as it's put before me at the moment.
Okay, Councillor Geoghegan.
Yeah, I'd like to concur with what the previous speakers have said, and I certainly wouldn't like to be party to making a decision here today which would cause division in a place like Billierstown. I think there's no doubt about it. I mean, it's a beautiful village, and the attractiveness of it is precisely because of the wide street that it has. And I don't think we should be using a sledgehammer to crack a nut, putting in traffic calming measures and all of that just to achieve something that, as Councillor Phelan says, may not necessarily exist in the first place. I mean, I've never gotten a complaint about speeding in Billierstown. And I think, in fairness to the people who have made submissions to us, they're the people living in Billierstown, and they know best what's best for their own village. And I also won't be supporting what's presented to me today.
Okay, right. Okay, they can do see. I thought Kieran, did you try to come in there as well?
I saw that Councillor Ducey had his hand up, so I said I'd let him come in first,
Okay,
Councillor, and then I might Gabriel reply, but I'd like to come in on some of the issues as well, just once Gabriel has replied.
No problem. Councillor Ducey.
Thanks, Chair. Like previous speakers, I'm totally against this idea. 264 residents to put their name to something that they feel very strong about is fair democracy, and were there like consultation? Was there any effort made to meet the Tidy Towns Committee? Like, were they respected at all, and it looks like as if their concerns weren't taken into consideration. Good, bad, or the other. Like, it's kind of they're insignificant, and they're being bullied out trying to been trodden on. Someone said previously there, look, Billierstown is unique. It was probably designed you know, hundreds of years ago. It's like really like you could. I don't know of any other place in Ireland as beautiful as that square and that roadway and the straightness of it and the design of it, and you know, I think to be destruction. It's you know, spending taxpayers' money to damage the beauty of the village. So I wouldn't support. I'm not supporting it either. Thank you.
Okay, lads, I just want to remind you, right, this is our second step at trying to get this done. You know, and look, I'm disappointed, right, that it has fallen between two stools. You know, if I was of the opinion, right, that there was a lot of consultation going on between the council and the residents. But I can't see how we could make a third attempt, lads. But anyway, look, I'll bring in Kieran and Gabriel. So I don't know who comes first. I'd say maybe Gabriel comes first. Maybe would that be okay with you, Kieran?
Perfect.
Okay, Gabriel.
Thanks, Kyer. Look, lads, just to point out, we're obliged to follow the DMOR standards. And anyway, we're putting forward a scheme. The most effective way in reducing speed is narrowing the carriageway. We're obliged to follow the standards and the design that's set down in the national design guidelines. In relation to consultation, we've had significant consultation on the ground. We've met all the various groups. I've met people on the ground myself, and both the area engineer Josephine and John Leonard have met various people on the ground. We've come with a compromise here. There's objections for us building the footpath in the green area, and there's objections for us building the footpath on the road. The carriageway has been narrowed to 6.5 metres only, and beyond that, there is facility for parking as well beyond that. I think it's important that we look after the vulnerable road user here, who's the pedestrian. Villarstown, lads, in the past, if you go back to the old historic maps, was a narrow street, and historically that's what Villarstown was, not big wide streets as that's there today. In order for us to commence the scheme, we need to ensure that we comply with NTA guidelines, which is DMARS. Obviously, from the statutory point of view, ye approve the scheme or amend the scheme or reject the scheme. But as an executive, it's not possible for us to proceed with a scheme that doesn't comply with national guidelines. And I think that what we're presenting is a very balanced approach. It's important for the vulnerable road user, and it's important to narrow the carriageway to reduce speed. And we've had significant complaints about speed there in the past, and now we're addressing them. And just to finish on this, at 30 kilometers an hour, if you're hit by a vehicle, there's a 1 in 10 chance that will be a fatal accident. As your speed goes up to 50 kilometers an hour, there's a 1 in 5 chance of fatal accidents, and at 60 kilometers an hour, there's a 1 in 9 chance that accident will be fatal. You hand over to Kieran there if he wants to add, or if you want to come back in. Thank you, Kieran.
Thank you, Gabriel. Kieran?
Thanks, Cahir. Look, I'd just support Gabriel's responses there, to be fair. We are constrained by national standards when we design any upgrade works to our carriageways. We've just had James and Murray and Lisa Mulcahy giving us, talking to us in relation to active travel, folks. And putting in anything less than 1.8 metres is effectively not worth it, to be honest with you, especially when you're trying to get safe movements to and from schools. This won't be changing the width in any way of the streetscape. It's just giving a little bit back to the pedestrian user rather than the cars. 6.5 metres of a road width remaining is, in my view, excessive for a village. And the most effective way of traffic calming is narrowing road widths, because the driver gets the perception, this is now, I have to slow down. Ramps, signs, everything else doesn't work to the same effect as naturally narrowing the road, and we're only bringing it back into 6.5, which is actually a quite wide road in normal circumstances. And the provision of safe, nice, wide footpaths at 1.8 metres is the best way to do it, and in accordance with the design manuals that we have to operate to. It's just important that we make the members aware of that before they finalise the decision. And I think Gabriel has given quite a good account of the level of consultation that's taken place.
Here, look, I propose that we defer it until March and that we would actually go and meet Gabriel on site, all of us as councillors, and discuss it there. It would take maybe 15-20 minutes of our time, and we'll come back and make a final decision in March.
Have I got a seconder for Gabriel's or for Damien's proposal?
I second that.
Okay, we'll leave it at that. So, lads, I know there's two more to come in there now, but look.
Is Gabriel prepared to do that?
Yeah, well, I'm waiting now. I'll bring in Gabriel now. Is that possible, Gabriel?
Yeah, I've never refused to meet you inside. I've never refused to meet residents. Yep. I've done that already, so I have no issue with that whatsoever.
No problem at all. Okay, Councillor Pratt, I would ask you to maybe just take a hand down and we can discuss this at a later stage. Are you happy enough with that?
Yeah, no, that's okay.
Okay.
I hope we get an amicable result.
Well, lads, we went very close. Right? We went very close to no footpath. So, look, I would suggest, right, that we would take what Councillor Geoghegan has proposed and we drive on and we come back at this again in a month's time, okay? That was it, I think, Gabriel, for taking in charge, am I right?
We have a statutory process there for Castle Keep in Dungarvan.
I propose
yes,
that.
Yes.
I second that, yeah.
Okay,
that's done. That's done and dusted, okay. Okay, we move on.
Sorry, Mayor, Chair, just one wish I'd have now is that the councillors are going out there to meet Gabriel, right? I don't think, and personally, I think we should be there to meet him and nobody else.
Fair enough, yeah.
Okay, I'd agree with that. So, right, I would second what you propose. Anyone else want to have some amendment to that?
Well, just a question, I suppose, Chair. If that meeting is to go ahead, is it on the base that it's kind of an either or, we either do it the way Gabriel's suggesting, or the footpath simply doesn't happen at all?
We'll have a look.
We'll have a look and we'll take it on that day. James Murray, you want to come in there briefly, James?
Yeah, I just suppose I know you're going to meet Gabriel on site, and I'd appreciate it if I could be there as well. This is essentially an active travel program, and the funding on it, and whether the MCA fund it or not, is, as Gabriel said, predicated on the fact that it meets the standards. They won't accept things that and fund things that are below the standard. So I suppose at that meeting when it happens, I'd appreciate it.
I have no problem with the men with the money being there.
All right, James, you're invited, okay, because you seem to have a big checkbook there at the moment. So James, you're invited, okay, is that fair enough? Okay, we move on, lads, to number 6, correspondence. There's none. Number 7, a motion from Councillor Geoghegan. Councillor Geoghegan, you might just read out that motion, please.
Yeah, I'll be quite brief, Councillor Crone. I think it's quite self-explanatory, and it's that Dungarvan Lismore District Council formally marked the centenary of the formal takeover of King John's Castle, Dungarvan, on the 4th of March, 1922, by the Provisional Government from the Royal Irish Constabulary. You have a seconder?
I would like to second that.
Councillor Doocy, second that.
Okay, thanks. Look, the reason I brought it forward is obviously, the 4th of March 1922 was a momentous day in the town's history. It was the day that the IRA and the Provisional Government went in and finally took control of the castle, and the RIC left Dungarvan for the last time, basically signifying that British rule came to an end on that day. I think it's really important that we would mark the occasion formally. I mean, obviously, in the months after that, difficult days would have ensued with the onset of the Civil War and that. But look, I think, the 4th of March 1922, all shades of political opinion, I believe, can support the event. And I think it's important. It's an important enough event for it to be formally organised by the council. And I think it should involve our defence forces and indeed Garda Síochána, who would have, been in the barracks as we would have known it growing up for so many years prior to their move to the Yahal Road. So look, and I know, Cahir, I think a close relative of your own would have actually been involved here in West Waterford as well, and would have been quite active at that time as well. So look, I'd ask that the council would support it, and that we would, talk to officials in the council, the heritage officer and that we would put something in place. I've noticed that quite a number of events have taken place around the country. Dublin Castle obviously was the largest one, but there's been some very nice events around the country. So I think that we should, as a council, formally mark the occasion. I think it warrants it.
Yeah, I was talking to Kieran just before the meeting started today, and I have realised, right, that there's actually 2 commemorations, I suppose, really. One on Saturday and one on Friday, I think it's been proposed. So look, I spoke to Kieran about it and the council's involvement in it. And maybe Kieran, before we go any further, maybe I just bring in Kieran because, right, I don't want one taken from the other. I know a lot of people involved in both if this goes ahead. So my view is, right, that I will let Kieran speak and then we might make a decision on it. So Kieran, I'll hand over the floor to you just now.
Thanks, Cahirlock. Yeah, look, as for our earlier discussion, when we did see the motion, it's important that anything like this goes through the proper channels, and I think the council is very supportive of recognising the date, the important date in local history, and we have our commemorations committee in place, and I think this should be referred immediately to that committee for consideration in conjunction with other proposals that are there, so that it is done in the right and appropriate manner.
But what you're suggesting, Kieran, right, basically is right that we would have one event rather than 2?
Well, look, it would seem a little bit, how would you say, unnecessary celebrating the same event on 2 separate occasions in such a short time frame within each other. But look, that's why we have a commemorations committee in place to make all these decisions and work on this stuff. So I suggest we go to them as quickly as we could.
Okay, I do know Councillor Ducey, you want to come in there? No, you're on mute.
No, I'm seconded Councillor Gagan. Sorry, my name is up on him. Sorry.
Okay, that's grand. Councillor McGuinness.
Yeah, Gramagad Cahirloch, and I think it's probably best. Excuse me, it's probably best if Councillor Gagan's motion is referred to the decade of centenary to the Waterford Commemorations Committee to be considered. I think it's a good proposal. I obviously think it's an event that needs to be marked, and as you mentioned yourself, Cahirloch, there is a commemoration in the offing that has been organised by a committee over the last number of months that has submitted an application to the Waterford Commemorations Committee that has been engaged with the OPW, that involves a number of historical and heritage associations across West Waterford, that involves the family members of many of the volunteers of the Irish Republican Army, and that involves historians of repute who are experts in the period in question, the revolutionary period, including Sean Murphy, Tommy Mooney, both of whom have written books, plural, on the topic, indeed Conor Donegan, who specialises in this period. So there is a committee that have put a huge amount of work into a commemoration. Invitations, as I understand it, would have issued. I certainly got one to my council email address that would have issued to all councillors, to Oireachtas members. And it is going ahead. I understand that the mayor of the city and county will be attending and will be laying a wreath on behalf of the people of Waterford. A number of bands from the locality will be participating, and it looks set to be a big occasion, a big community celebration, I suppose, of the liberation of Waterford. And I understand where Councillor Gagan is coming from, but I think it would have, initially it would be better, obviously, to go through the correct channels of the committee. But also, I would like to see, rather than having a separate standalone event by the district council organised in effectively 2.5 weeks, that this district council would just support the commemoration that's going ahead, that's already in train, and that has gone through the correct channels. So I'd look, if it's necessary, I'd be proposing an amendment that just to add to Councillor
McGuinness, I have only 2 minutes left to take a decision.
So I'll just say that the amendment that I'd propose, if necessary, would be that in addition to the text, that we would mark the occasion by supporting the existing commemoration that's taking place on the Saturday.
Okay.
Thanks, Chair. That's me done.
Could I just come back in there, Cahir? Look, I actually personally think that if the Commemorations Committee was doing its job correctly, there wouldn't be any need for me today to bring a motion before the council. I think it's the job of the Commemorations Committee to ensure that a proper commemoration was organised and put in place, and that it shouldn't necessarily be left up to an ad hoc group or a community group or whatever. It's the Commemorations Committee of the council should have been the one driving this first day, I think.
Chair, I think that is extremely unfair to the organisations that organise events and commemorations and seminars and workshops and events and conferences all along that have done so on the basis of voluntary effort and have put their applications before the Commemorations Committee. And if Councillor Geoghegan had wanted to, there was nothing stopping him 6 months ago to go into the committee with a suggestion.
Oh, I have no problem
fact,
whatsoever with any group. No, Councillor McGuinness, let's be quite clear. I have no problem.
Hold on.
I'm not being critical of any group that's organising any commemoration. But what I am saying is I believe the Commemorations Committee of the Council should be the driving force. I'm not criticising in any way, shape or form anybody who wishes to hold a commemoration or who's out there publishing books or anything like that. The best of luck to them, and I'm delighted to see him doing it. I'm not being critical of them at all now, Councillor McGuinness. So let's be clear. But I am being critical of the Commemorations Committee here. I do think that they should be the driving force here. They're a subcommittee of the council, and here's a major event, and they had no plans to mark it. That's the reality of it. And that's the reason why I brought forward a motion today, because I think it's important that the council officially does it and it marks the occasion. And if there's 2 events down there or 3 events or 4 events, great, because I do believe that the occasion and the anniversary warrants it.
Okay, are you proposing so, Councillor Geoghegan, that we go back to the Commemoration Committee?
Refer it to the committee, yep, and we'll see where it goes.
Have I seconded for that?
I second this.
Okay. Thierry,
Chair,
will you?
Chair, could I please make a comment just as a member of the Commemorations Committee, because while I do agree with the general trust.
Hold on a moment now. We're gone over time now.
I know. I'll be very brief. I just think the Commemorations Committee has been mentioned in a negative manner, and I just would like to address it as a member of that committee. And while doing so, to acknowledge that I do agree with the thrust of Councillor Geoghegan's motion, and I do think actually that it should be yourself, Chair, as the first citizen of the west of the county, should be the main person at it, as opposed to the City and County, or just personal choice. But just in relation to the Commemorations Committee, I suppose the YC as our terms of reference have been for quite a while now as the people, I suppose, looking at allocating funds from as part of national policy to community groups and organisations, not necessarily being the initiator of particular commemoration events. What we do is essentially put out an application process, and then community groups, historical societies and so on and so forth can then apply and request funding, which we just then kind of adjudicate on and issue funding. It hasn't necessarily been decided to be our role that we were the planners of particular events, but I do think perhaps if this does go to Commemorations Committee, there might potentially be an opportunity for the people on that to try to bring the 2 events that seem to be in train together, even at short notice. Thanks, Chair.
That may happen, yeah. That very well may happen, yeah.
Look,
I suggest that Councillor Phelan, as a member of that committee, would forward Councillor Geoghegan an application form, the same type of application form that every community group has to fill in order to be considered. Thanks. I think that'd be helpful.
Look, I'm not a member of the executive of that committee. I'm just an ordinary councillor.
Well, I can forward it.
We can go on. Look, listen,
I think
we can show this over back to one another now, lads, for the rest of the evening, right?
Sorry, Chair, I agree with Councillor Phelan. I think Commemoration Committee should be brought into play here, and maybe in discussions we can come up with the one event. But I do think that, and I also think that you, as the chair of the Dungarvan Lismore area, first citizen in this, we are still recognise that you should be the man to do that, or woman, if it was a woman who was chair at the moment.
So I'd like to concur
Councillor Phelan.
I'd like to concur with Councillor Tobin. I think it's disappointing that we are where we are, that we haven't been able to arrive to a decision prior to now, that it would have been one event. And look, I'm not going to get into the who should or shouldn't be, but it's just disappointing in my opinion.
I think myself, right, that the 2 committees should come together, the one that's there for the West Waterford Commemoration Committee and the County Council's one, and come up with a proposal to move this forward, lads, because I wouldn't like to see 3 or 4. I wouldn't like to see 2, because I think one is going to take from the other, And that's not the spirit of the whole thing. This is to commemorate something that happened, lads, 100 years ago to the day. And right, it's sad, right, that we're going down this road now. I didn't think we would be going down this road. But look, we are where we are now. And what I'm suggesting is, right, that the two committees should actually meet together. And I as I said again, I know people on both of them, and there are a lot of very, very good, genuine people on both of them. And I would like this, right, not to become a clash. It shouldn't be, it's not meant to be. And what I'm saying is this, right, that the two committees come together and trash out some kind of an agreement, and we move this on, and we do it for the spirit that it should be done under.
Cahir, look, I'll commit to bring that back to the Castle Centenary Committee who are organising it. I know that they've already been in touch almost day and daily with the executive of the Commemorations Committee, with the County Archivist, and that there's a lot of engagement there. I'm sure they'll be more than happy with the input and the support of the District Council. And any councillor, will have received an invitation and is very welcome to attend. I'll also pass on. I know the invitation is issued to the mayor of the city and county, but I'll also make the suggestions known from Councillor Tobin and Councillor Phelan there that the district Cathaoirleach would also be, I suppose, formally included in that event. I don't think there's any issue there.
Okay, listen, we move on.
Any of that, councillor. No problem at all. That's perfect.
Okay, we move on, lads. I take it. Any other business? Okay, done and dusted, right? Right, we're moving the whole thing back anyway, lads, to our committee. I close the meeting now, and we take it from there. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, sir.